but I have one topic, and that is death. I think we've spoken about it a couple of times.
It's actually the most emotional for me.
Yeah, death is very interesting to me. I actually love that whole, just the fact that death alone is there. It's kind of mind-blowing to me. So I wanted to go through that with you. And I did ask you to have a couple of questions, to ask me. That we can leave it at the end.
Of course.
Yeah. So right now, let's just kind of like start from scratch and
Okay.
and move on. I feel like as having spoken before is actually somewhat of a disadvantage, because it's like we already know something.
It's actually not a disadvantage. Do you know why? If there's one thing that I've learned from you, which is actually like helping me to pick up in so many like genres of my life, it's the fact that even if you learn something today, but if you say you want to keep it in your head and use it when you go through experiences or whenever you come such a moment where you have to think, then that thing is not authentic, because you're going back to your knowledge. You're not acting as in the moment.
Yeah,
So for me, I feel like it's a privilege that we're going to talk about something that we've talked about before. But remember, it's what we talked about then doesn't like necessarily exist now. So what's important is what has happened over the change. Maybe, I have a different idea of what death is compared to what we talked about last time.
Yeah. So let's unlearn, first of all. Let's forget about all that. So death, for instance, as a human being, I feel like death plays a huge role in our lives. Everything we do basically is to avoid that thing, death. Like literally every cell in our body is like, I don't want to die, So survival is involved in this whole thing. You work to be able to provide so that you don't die, so that your family doesn't die. When you're sick, you're completely terrified, like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And we don't dive deep into that, because, if that is the focus of our life, if everything we're doing is to avoid that end thing, don't you think it's kind of like important to know what is that anyway, to understand it? Because everything we do is revolving around that whole death thing. So I feel like for a human being to be able to truly live, you have to understand what death is.
Of course.
Yeah. Otherwise, you just you're not living. You're just surviving. Always conflict. So death. I died today. Let's say you were driving in an Uber right now. You have a terrible accident. Thank God you're here. But suppose you have a terrible accident. The body is gone. Your head is somewhere there, and you're dead. That we understand. The body is not functioning anymore. It's completely gone. But what is it that dies really? Is it just the body that stops and that's it? That's the end of the story? Or do we feel somehow that there's something else that dies, that can possibly go on? Because that's the theories we have, right? We go on somewhere else, which is paradise, for instance. If you're Christian, you're born Christian, I believe.
Yes.
So am I, although I'm not Christian. But every religion has that thing, You go on. So paradise or hell. So you best make sure you live the good life, otherwise paradise is not, But definitely there's something going on after the body.
Most definitely.
Yeah, at least that's what people think is going on.
Do you know what's crazy?
Yeah.
What's crazy is that I'm sure, I don't know if you'll remember, but that time my greatest fear was death. Yeah. Like I'd wake you up in the middle of the night and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so paranoid. I saw this. And you're like, that was just experiences. It's nothing to do. Yeah. But what are you really afraid of? I honestly think that once you are less afraid of something that you don't know, then it's then when you can easily learn what's going on. Obviously, something has to give.
Yeah,
Obviously,
definitely.
like we can crack our heads and be like, oh, when I die, I go to heaven. When I die, my spirit, everybody has their own understanding of what happens after, death.
So we theorize a lot.
Yes.
We don't actually face death itself.
You
We
know,
think about it.
for me, I have this weird, I don't know if it's weird or if it's normal to other people, but I just have this weird belief, right? If we say something has to give, then something has to take. At the end of the day, when you come to earth, you have no idea of anything that's going on. And then when you get here, you get religion introduced to you, you get culture, tradition, every other belief system that is in this world is what you are taught at that particular time you're in.
Yeah.
So as you grow, like there's certain things that you unlearn, like why should I be afraid of something that I don't know? Nobody knows what death is like. Nobody
We
knows.
pretend to know.
Huh?
Most of us pretend to know what
We
death is. Yeah.
pretend.
We
We
project an
pretend.
idea of what death is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then, like, I've seen some cultures where if somebody dies, they celebrate. It was weird at first. I'm like, why would they celebrate death? You know? But then with time, I realized that it's actually a good culture because if I die today and I've lived my life, to the fullest, whether or not, but if I live here, then that's the end of it for me here on earth. But it's definitely a different journey. Like life is just, like when you're alive, when you're alive, there's one thing that you realize: life is an ongoing journey. It can never stop. That is just my belief that if I live here, right, my body leaves this place, my beliefs, everything in me dies here. But I always have the strong belief that that thing that no one is willing to talk about, the one that lives inside me, the one that is me, is the one that carries on.
Okay, so you see there, you actually just talked a lot of things, and we'll get there. All right, and you see that's what I'm saying. Knowledge is really a terrible thing.
It is.
We know too much. First of all, that, for example, when you say that thing that lives in me, I feel like that's really introducing some sort of conflict. But we'll get there later.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, coming back to religion, Christianity has that idea of there's something that goes on. Islam as well, I believe. Anything really, Buddhism, I think reincarnation, right? You die and then you reincarnate in something better. So no one is willing to accept an end, right?
That again, that we don't know.
Yeah, and that you don't know. No one is willing to accept that there's such a thing as death. I must go on, right? So what is it that goes on? Your body is gone. You've been in a car accident. It's not working anymore. Decaying in the ground. What is it that goes on? So to understand what death is, you have to understand yourself. Because you die, right? What is it that dies exactly? The body, we've understood it. We have books and books, scientists explaining what the biology of the anatomy, whatever, everything is there. But psychologically, because that's the thing that is saying I go on, right? What is that I that is saying I go on? Now let's start with that. Perhaps if you can understand that, then if it's real, then we'll know that, okay, fine, if my body dies, that thing there is going to go somewhere else. Who knows?
I was actually hoping that you would not ask that question, right?
Yeah.
Because it's such a difficult question to answer.
Very difficult.
Because now, when you say I, it goes to the question of who is I?
Yeah, exactly.
And when you say I'm thinking, is it you thinking or it's the thinker that is thinking? It's always a debate of those. So to be precise, I would not lie to you and say it's my soul. My soul lives on when I die. Then my body goes to the physical realm, and then my soul goes to the spiritual realm, right? But the actual answer is I don't know.
Okay, let's start with that. I think that's a big advantage. Someone who says I don't know, really I believe is someone who can know. Don't say I know. What do you know? Okay, we have experiences. All we know is experiences, right? We've experienced some things. We gather that, right? Also, we have knowledge of other people, because when we came here, through the interacting with them, they told us what life is about, whatever, and also their experiences. I might have never been bitten by a snake, but someone tells me what being bitten by a snake feels like. And somehow I have that knowledge and I kind of have that experience. So that's all we have, knowledge. And that knowledge is what is saying, I know. So basically the past is saying, I know. Always, all the time.
It's always the past.
Yeah, always the past. Never actually
the present,
this moment here, yeah. The present. The future even, okay, we're going to get to the future later, but the present is never experienced because that's the only real thing, really.
But now, when you say, like, that's the only real thing, it just kind of, like, hits me hard. Like, I get so emotional. Like, I don't even want to think about it when I'm alone.
Yeah.
To actually think that we're out here living, like, majority of the people, I can, like, confidently say 80% of us,
99.
right? 99 live on or by the past.
Yeah.
Like, none of us is fully much aware that, the only thing that we have to live for is the present.
Yeah.
It's just like me now. If I can say to you, yo, boss, I'm so actually grateful that I came to the podcast. But now my greatest stress is that when I leave here and I start thinking of the other things that even haven't, come to what we're doing, then I've lost, obviously, the present. And then during the present, nothing is going to be like as legit or authentic as it's supposed to be, because it's either I'm stuck on some past and thinking that that's what's going to actually create this moment to be it, or I'm thinking about the non-existing future, right? And be like, if maybe I can reach out to that, then maybe I can make the situation a bit calmer. So when you talk about being present, I think that's one of my biggest battles.
Yeah.
I'm one person who fails.
Now we're gonna get over that battle.
Yeah.
At least the present moment.
Yeah.
Let's not care about what happens when you go out there. But here, I think we're gonna get over that. So basically, you see that the past, which is a dead thing, right? We're talking about death, right? So we'll see what death is in all its tiny bits. So past also is death. It's dead, right? It's gone.
It's gone.
But somehow is always overflowing in the present. So in the very act of trying to avoid death, right, you're bringing it all the time. So you're not really living. You've never really known what life is because the past is so heavy that it's always overflowing in the present moment, right? And that is because you're afraid of dying. So you being afraid of dying, you want to cling on to something that okay, I've lived that, I have that experience, I have that knowledge. As long as I have that knowledge, I'm going on. Because that happened, so I know for sure that I was living. And if I keep it with me, I know that I'm still living, which means you're completely missing out the whole, what's happening. So that's what I was saying about someone who says, I don't know. I think that's the most intelligent way of living. Because you're learning all the time. You're literally allowing death to come, the end happening. It's like death is always there with you as you are living.
Somehow you're defeating it.
You're not afraid of it. It's not something that is going to come at the end. But you know actually what dying to all of this, all the knowledge is about. So I think physically death is very simple. I mean, we can see it happening. Right now there are birds eating insects. When we look at it, we don't feel afraid because it's not about us, you see. But that is death. Death is actually happening. An insect that is dying. Your brain cells, whatever cells you have in you is also dying, renewing itself all the time.
Day.
But you're not afraid of it. It's only when I comes into play that I feels like I might not be there anymore. Then the problem starts. But death is there, it's always happening. But you've introduced something like a virus in you. And that is the problem. So let's find out what that I is, because that's the troublemaker all the time.
It's the fear.
Yeah, it's the fear. It's a lot of things, everything. It's the fear, it's the jealousy, it's the greed, it's the pleasure, it's everything. Which is not bad. I mean, I think it's kind of amazing to have that.
Really?
But yeah, because it's part of life, you know. It's no mistake that it's there. But it's like, I feel like it takes over the human mind all the time. So much so that it can never realize how big the mind itself is. You know, it's like you narrow down your whole mind to such an extent, you know, that I. And then everything revolves. So you create a center, and then everything revolves around that center. The moment that center feels frightened, it has to fight, you know, which is personally, psychologically, there's a fight, right, which is psychological conflict. For instance, fear. That's a psychological conflict. Fear is basically you anticipating something that might hurt you. You know, maybe the fear of not having enough money. It's not actual. It's an idea. The idea of being poor is so big that you're completely afraid now. And you start behaving in neurotic way. Yeah, a certain way. The fear, let's say in a relationship, the fear of being betrayed, cheated on. You have not been cheated on yet.
But because you know it.
Because you are afraid of that happening, right? You've experienced, you've seen maybe someone go through that, maybe your parents or trauma or whatever. Then you have that idea that, oh shit, it's gonna come to me. And then you start behaving in a way that actually is gonna bring that to happen. Because you become needy, you become clingy, you hold on to someone too much, and that person has to move away, you know, and the cheating happens. So fear is that I. Fear is, jealousy is that I. So let's find out what that I is today, so that by the time you leave here, you know exactly what you are, you know, not just the body. You know exactly what you are and what you're doing to yourself. That you don't, I feel like most of us live, we're not really living, it's more like there's something pushing us around.
We're just existing.
Yeah, I don't even know how to explain that.
We're not living, we're just existing.
Yeah, existing, what does that, what do you mean by we're just existing?
You know, like when you live, it requires you to be fully present.
Yeah.
Away, like 100% away of everything. Being present, like being available for everything that's happening. But when you exist, you move with the motion. I have to wake up, brush my teeth, I have to get ready for work, I have to do, that's you just existing.
The habits, the routines.
You know, you're just existing. Like, I have to pray, there's a routine, there's a certain routine that you follow, and that's just, you know, existing. But living, that's the most difficult thing everyone goes through. It's hard to live.
Yeah, we don't even have the chance to live. Okay, in that case, I understand what you mean.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I feel like if a man or a woman, in your case, I'm just going to talk in a general way.
A man.
Yeah, these days when you don't mention the right gender, the people fight a lot. Let's not
So
get
we're just
there.
going to go to a man.
Yeah, let's stop that division, first of all. I don't know why we're so divided, you know. Just because people look different, we feel like there's something else. Okay, you're different than me because you look different, you know. Not only because you're a woman, but suppose if I was white, for instance, and you're black, somehow just seeing something that is kind of like different from you, you feel like you're different. No, but I feel like we should really go to, that's living superficially. You're not really going to the bottom of things. You know, it's good to be on that superficial level. It has a certain diversity, certain attraction, to it. But really, it's too meaningless. At some point, you have to go to the bottom of things and say, okay, as a human being, for instance, right? What am I? Now, what is it that asks that question? Who is asking that question? It's still the I, right? Who's asking the question, who am I? It's me who's asking, right? How do I ask that question? How does it come about? It's through my thoughts, through thinking. So thinking is the very foundation of I. There wouldn't be I without thinking. Thinking is happening, therefore there's an I. Now, the problem is we never really look at that process of thinking because it's so strong. As you are thinking, it's impossible to look at thinking. So you are driven by that thinking. Right? So much so that you can never actually pause and say, okay, what is happening? What is thinking in the first place? What is that?
It sounds crazy when you try to pause your thoughts. Because the minute you pause it, another one comes in. And then when you're trying to control that one, another one comes in. And then you find yourself where you're like, I'm not going to think of anything. And the minute you say, I'm not going to think of anything, thoughts come in creeping.
That is a thought. The very second you say, I'm not going to think of anything, that's
it's
thought.
It's still a thought.
Yeah. Which means what? There's no division. You can never divide thought, although that's what it's trying to do all the time. It's always trying to do, act as if it is separate from itself. Creating a division within itself all the time. Almost as if there's this thing that can look at this thing. The very moment it says this thing, looking at that thing, it has created a division, right? But is that division actual? Is that not an illusion? So, and please, as we're talking, you're looking at these things happening, right?
I am with you, but I'm also not with you because as you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes a lot of sense. I'm joining my thoughts together.
No,
and
good. Like, stay there. Stay there. Let's not theorize because there's a lot of theories. I mean, you can, if you want a theory, just go grab a book. There are too many books over there. You grab a book, there's a theory. And the theories will never stop. I mean, you can even come up with them yourself. What we're trying to do is communicate on a different level, right? Unfortunately, the only tool we have right now is the verbal communication, because that's how we have to, kind of like try to connect.
Of course.
Yeah. So to me, I feel it's like this verbal communication is kind of like garbage, really. It's good. It's, I mean, look at how beautiful it is. You can make music, and then someone really listen to the lyrics and like, oh, there's that communication. The very fact of us talking here, even the language itself, it's beautiful, really. The English language, the French language, it's good.
Just speaking of that, something just crossed my mind. All right. So this other time I was like, regarding the conflict that's going on around, like from language and all the other things we can go on if we had to mention. Like, I always ask myself, like, what was it that was like actually there before? Because before we could even reach English, it was still a struggle to like maintain a language for each, right? So then I asked myself, like, was it not much more peaceful when there was no language, but it was just maybe that body language where you communicate through your emotions? Like everything was physical then, like you wouldn't like use words to go through a person's mind and all of that. So that's one of the things like I always ask myself, and until today I still don't have an answer, like what would life be without us having just one language to communicate, but communicate through our emotions and thoughts without even having to say a word.
Yeah. I think, I don't know how it was before, and I also don't want to theorize because
you don't know.
But I feel like it was more intense. It was much more real.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, we were definitely on a different level. But language is inevitable in a civilization. In the animal kingdom, definitely, because there's also that frustration of, I'm trying to say something, I'm not sure if you're getting, that's how language came to be.
Right?
Started with science, and then, we had to introduce, like the birds sing, and so on, they communicate. So there's that frustration of, I have to reach out to you. And then ultimately we'll reach to English and so on. But to me, I feel like communication through the words is very limited. So I wanted to get over the verbal garbage of it. And that communication is much more deep because if you can see within yourself, and not what I'm telling you, But if you can see when you're realizing, for example, that thought is always moving.
Of course.
That realization. If I also realize that as we are talking, then it's no longer my realization and your realization. It's one thing. We're seeing the same thing.
It's our realization.
Yeah, it's our realization. We are connecting. We are talking on a deeper level. So that's the kind of communication I want to reach today as we are talking. So literally, I'm not teaching anything. I'm not, you are learning from yourself.
Right, interesting.
As I am learning right now from myself. So I'm looking what's happening here, and somehow we find the same answer within ourselves. That's much more real than me coming and preaching and giving you some propaganda and so on. Because you never know. I could be some crook, I could be some, I don't know. How do you trust someone? You have first to see it for yourself. So coming back to that thinking, right? Why is it always trying? First of all, let's see that division clearly again. Let's go through it. So it's dividing itself all the time. It's fragmenting itself, cutting itself into pieces so that it can look at itself. Because it feels like it can never look at itself without cutting itself, right? Without creating a center. Now, and it's convincing itself that really it is different from that other segment. So this...
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
I feel crazy.
This thought here really believes that it is different from the thought, the next thought. You know, so the thought that just came right now believes that it's different from that which happened.
Of course.
Yeah. Now, first let's see how stupid that is and illusory. Because for there to be thoughts can only exist in the past, first of all. You can't think of the present. The present is unknown, unknowable. You can never know it.
You can never.
You can never know it. However, what you do is you record what's happening right now. Right? You record it, and then you look back at that thing that happened. And then you have the illusion that what's happening there as you thought is the present. But it's dead. You're looking, so the past is thought. Thought is always acting as if it is happening now.
So do you agree that like in this entire life or our existence, our whole entire existence, nobody acts according to what's happening now? It's always a reflection of thoughts.
Yeah, of course, if you're overtaken by thoughts, because that's generally what happens, right? Thinking, even when you're not realizing.
That you're thinking.
Yeah, subconsciously. And subconsciously, it's even much more subtle because, you know, you have, for instance, your ambition. That's the subconscious, right? Something that is really within you that I have to do that. And then you start thinking of things to do without realizing that it's because of that subconscious desire of I have to do that or be there. So you are always, most of the time, thinking. And I think... I don't know if I should call it the curse of humanity or what.
It is.
Yeah, but that's what's happening, right? And it can do a lot of amazing things. Everything we have here. And you know what's amazing about thoughts? Yeah, although we think like thoughts is abstract, it's not physical. It's a lie. This is thought. We created this thing through our thoughts. So you can look at all these things, you know, the mics.
That's amazing.
Thoughts can actually materialize itself if you give it enough energy. You know, the people that came up with all these things were really pushing that thinking process, you know, very far. And also, even when you look at the brain, what is thinking? Literally, it's a physical thing. It's the cells interacting with each other. And it creates, so one cell interacting with another cell brings back the memory of what was happening here. So it's a very physical thing. But somehow we feel like, no, it's abstract, which is why we call it the spirit, almost as if it's something non-physical that's gonna move on to something physical when I die. You don't realize that it's physical. It's very small, very limited. And by nature, it's a conflict in that process. So you can see, if you look at it right now, you can see that thoughts can never be divided. There's no such thing as a thinker, a person who is thinking, where that I comes from. Because I is basically that idea of there's a thinker who is doing the thinking. Otherwise, there wouldn't be an I. So it's only when your thought has divided itself, then it says, oh yeah, I am thinking, without realizing that I is a thought. Therefore, a conflict.
Because you had to think that who's thinking.
Yeah. So what happens when you realize that the thinker, there's no such thing as thinker and thought, it's together. There's only thinking happening. There's not I am thinking. Thinking is happening.
Where is this thinking coming from? I think that's the ideal.
Yeah. First of all, you can't even answer the question because that's again thinking. That's thought again trying to
know where they're coming from.
Yeah, creates a division of there's a place, a different place where it's coming from. You're caught in that trap.
Yeah.
Yeah. No matter what you do, whichever move you make,
you're just caught in it.
You're caught in it. Now, when you realize that, what happens? Try it, look at it.
The emotions, obviously, it escalates.
Oh, emotions, also again, emotions. What do you mean by emotion?
I know it's still the same thing, but obviously, I don't know if it's possible, but personally, I don't think there'll ever be a moment where it will be separable. Like it's inseparable.
Okay, you can never realize that moment, because if you say, "Oh, I realize that I'm not thinking," you're lying to yourself.
You're lying to
right?
yourself. You're forever thinking.
Yeah, you've divided the realizer and the realized. You've divided it.
And it's the same thing.
Yeah, you can never know it. You can never be aware of it. Doesn't that sound similar to what we were saying, which is the present?
Yeah.
You can never know what the present is. Which means what? The very moment you've seen, not just intellectually, but you look at it and you see that, oh no, I am dividing myself, I'm breaking myself into tiny pieces. Every move that I make, left, right, is the same move. Literally, there's no left or right. I'm making it up. You're caught, right? You understand that I'm caught here. There's nothing to do. Therefore, you stop. For that, there's something that happens, although you can never realize it, but a brain that has really seen that there's no movement that I can make, it stops moving.
Really?
Yeah. It stops moving, but then it comes back again I don't know how long it takes, but it comes back. It's natural. It has to come back.
It's so annoying, though.
Yeah. No, I think it's natural. It shouldn't be annoying. You should just accept the reality of it. That's how you are.
Do you know why I'm saying it's annoying? Like sometimes I think of something, give it time, and I'll be like, this is perfect. You're doing this. And then later, I just have a shift, and be like, nah, if I do this way, then I'm probably interrupting what could have actually gone right. Let me do it this way. When that whole movement of thought starts happening, sometimes it's hard for me. I don't know about other people. Sometimes it's hard for me to tap out from it. I'll be like, it's going to be an ongoing thing. I think like the power of the mind is something else that, we look at just like, it's just happening, it's there, but it's much way deeper than that.
No, it's too deep.
And
I think actually that's how should I call it? I think thought is the barrier to that, the death of the mind itself. Which makes me think that it's because of fear. Thought is afraid, the self, literally, is afraid of dying. So it has to move on. It can't stop, because the very moment you realize that there's not a thinker, you're literally killing yourself, the self, and the self can't stand dying.
So it continues.
It has to fight that, yeah. So which is fear? It's fighting the death. But it's an illusion. Who is fighting what?
It's still the thing.
It can't accept that literally I do not exist. It can never accept that.
Oh, okay.
Right? So, yeah, I was saying, when the mind sees that every movement that it makes is a trap made by itself, it kind of cools down. Because literally, let's say we locked up in this room. We hit the walls for 20 years.
And
nothing happens. We really realize that, oh my God, there's no
really
way
trapped
out of this thing. What do? You sit down. Because you realize I've been hitting the walls, I'm breaking my fingers, all that.
Still nothing is happening.
You keep hitting the wall because you think
there's a possible way out.
There's a possible way out, which means you have not realized that there's no way out. Yeah. So when you realize that there's no way out, at some point you have to sit down. Yeah, say, okay, there's nothing else to do. I'm sitting down. That's a good thing, because you've stopped conflict. For the first time in your life, you're not fighting.
That's crazy. It's like when you get into an argument with a person, right? And then, like, if you don't think, you're bound to make a mistake, right? If you come at me and you're like, no, Tutu, that's not what I said, you know? I said when you come here, we're going to start this podcast, and then you're coming 2 hours later. We only have 30 minutes. Not knowing that it's possible in that 30 minutes to actually cover up everything. But because you're so furious, you had things planned in your head, and then now you start messing the whole thing up. But when you're calm, when you know that, you know what, there's nothing I can do than to just follow the process in this very moment, then it's easy for you to be just like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
But I find that very impossible.
It's not impossible. I think it's because we've been wrongly educated.
And programmed.
Yeah. We've been conditioned in a very, very bad way. This world is very ugly. We've turned it into something very ugly. Because, say, the example you just used, if I get angry, right? That, oh, I had 30 minutes planned, and then you come here 30 minutes late, and so on. Anger is happening. What does that mean? Anger is the past. My plans are the past. So I'm clinging on to something that is gone. I can't let that go. Therefore, anger. So the past is fighting with the present.
So it's actually a delay.
Yeah. So something that is not there is trying to fight something that is here.
Crazy.
And that's a condition. That's knowledge, and that's how we educated. You learn, accumulate all that knowledge, my tribe, my ancestors, my what's not. And all those things that are dead are fighting with what's here.
It's crazy. Like, I'm just waiting for you to get to where that point, as you just like walking past that conversation. I'm like, oh, here we go. It's crazy how we all walk around. Like, even when we step out of here, everybody's walking around thinking they have a legit plan. Like, everybody's going back to their memory to try and live in the now.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
They're not living. They're zombies. Literally.
Exactly. We are zombies.
We're zombies.
We are zombies because, like, when you're outside, you're not even seeing. This other time, I was with my niece, right? The weather just changed. It was hot, and then after that, a few raindrops, and we're playing outside, and then she's just going on and on. I was so deep in I love a rainbow, by the way. When I see a rainbow, just something changes in me. It makes me happy. And then we're just having fun, playing, and then the next thing, that day I was not feeling well. Something really broke my heart. And trust me, I didn't see the rainbow. I missed it. And then she was like, oh my gosh, see the rainbow? I felt so sad, because what was the point of being outside to play if I'm not going to be fully involved in what was going on?
So you're outside,
missed
yet
something.
you're in.
Exactly.
And you say that's very powerful, because you see, the thinking process is an image maker. when you're thinking about something, because you're remembering, you can never think of something else. You have to remember. That's
you can't think of something you don't know.
Yeah, you can't think of something new. So you have to always remember. And when you remember, right now, let's say your mom. The very moment I said mom, you have the image of your mom, which is all that you acknowledge, the experiences you've had together and so on. Literally, even the word mom only makes sense because you have to remember M-O-M
exactly
in your mind. So when you overtaken by thinking, literally the whole world doesn't exist. You're creating, you're remembering of what was there.
Would you say a whole part of it is just an illusion?
It's an illusion. It's not actual. It's an illusion. It's just image making. An image isn't real. If I take an image of you, it's not Tutu.
Yeah.
Tutu is something that is moving all the time. It's changing. It's, I can never take an image of Tutu. I can only take a certain, a dead thing of Tutu. But Tutu can never stop. It's always moving, right? So that's thinking. It's creating images. And you see how terrible it is. People go through relationships, for instance.
Oh my gosh.
They have images.
As you're saying that, you know what's happening?
Yeah.
I can't really remember the name of the movie.
Yeah.
But there was a line where they were explaining like what thinking really is. And oh my gosh, what's the name of the movie? If I try to remember, I'll forget, I know. But then that white old man was like, when you think, this is what the mind does. It has all these images of something that has happened, something that has not happened. But because you are able to realize, even if it did not happen, that means everything that you are always thinking about is not happening.
It's not. It's you are projecting something. You are projecting. You are fabricating. Like basically, thoughts. The way I see it.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah, thoughts is a con artist. No, seriously, the way I see it, thoughts is this. There's the actual. This is a cactus, right?
Yes, there's the actual plant.
Yeah, the actual plant. And this is thought. It's a fake version of the actual thing. It's an illusion. But the actual.
But because you know the actual thing,
yeah, because
you relate.
You relate. You can try to immortalize that actual thing, that experience, right? So, see how dangerous that becomes now when the past is always overflowing. When in relationship with people, which is literally the whole point of life, it's relationship with everything we have. In relationship with people, we're never actually in relationship with them. We are in relationship with the images of them, right? We are never actually with the people. We are with the images. The image of my wife who nagged me yesterday. She's starting to lose respect. But your wife is, even saying my wife, you've internalized the whole idea of there's a whole person who is mine, right? And that mine means all the experiences, which is the signing of the thing, or whatever, the kids together, the bad things she told me, the good things. That is the image, the knowledge of your wife, of the person. But the person is something entirely different.
Gosh.
You are never actually talking to the person.
Never.
There's no connection.
You're always talking to yourself.
Yeah, you're talking to yourself. There's an image. You put a wall there. So does she. She put a wall there. And then they're just reflecting themselves there.
Crazy.
Because if you could have a deep relationship with someone, be it your boss, your father, your child, you would actually realize that this is me.
It's you. It's all you.
It's me. It's actually, there's no difference. There's no division. You see the same way thought has the illusion that it's different from the other thought.
I hate to make the example of scientists, right? They always put these things, especially like if you want to learn something, it's always easy through social media these days. They'll always like relate the mind to the universe. And then when they start doing those weird calculations that I don't even want to know how they add up, but it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You know, like as a human being, nothing is ever still with you. Everything, if you're part of Earth, then like as the Earth is like moving, you are also moving. You can never be focused on just a thought. Then if you focus on one thought, then I think the doctors would give you a diagnosis that you are brain damaged.
Yeah, that's what happens, right? Psychological disorders. It's the problem. It's something that is going on wrong in the mind. You know, the thinking process generally. You know, let's say someone who's having illusions. You know, I don't know, schizophrenic maybe, having an episode. The mind literally is convincing the person of something otherwise. It's an illusion. They can have the illusion that there's a tiger right now here, and it's actually real in their mind. But it's not actually what's happening. So most of us are crazy human beings.
I am crazy.
Yeah, most of us are psychologically disturbed. It's just that that majority of people have said that this is normal, the normal.
And it's not normal.
No, it's not. We are disturbed. We are psychologically damaged. You know, I mean, someone who says, for instance, my religion or my country is completely crazy. He doesn't understand what it means by that even. The fact that first you create an idea of a country, right? And then you internalize, which means it's you, it's still you. You have the image, because how does a country come about it? We think about it, right? Say, okay, we can just group ourselves, take these tribes, put themselves together.
Like, it's crazy. You know, I feel like humans are beyond the word smart, intelligent. But because of the way everything has been created, it's like we just have to generalize and fit so life can go on. It's crazy. Like I've had a lot of experiences, like the long distance that I took just to get here. Normally, like if you get into a bus and then you decide that, you know what, it's a long distance, I just want to be in my thoughts, think about everything, look at the mountains and appreciate nature until I get there. Trust, you'll have the most boring trip. You'll be just having the conflict, you know, of thoughts and everything. But if you get inside and you're like, let me engage myself, you know, let me talk to people I don't know. What am I here to learn? You know, what are they going to teach me? What am I taking with me? Your trip becomes extremely beautiful and short. You know, because that's what happened on
your way.
On Sunday. Yes, I was like, yo, the people I'm in this bus with, like I already knew that none of them are capable to have that intellectual conversation with me. So I was like, let me just be like them. Let me not try to be something different from them, and let's see how that goes. I swear that was the best trip I've ever had.
Yeah.
You know, because we were all, even though we're not thinking of the same thing, but as we're having conversations, we're all convinced that we're thinking of the same thing. So now my thing is with the mind or the thinker or whatever you want to call it, it becomes extremely difficult for you to build a relationship with if you are not okay.
What do you mean, okay?
If you have unresolved issues.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like if there's anger, disappointments, all these emotions, like if they're heavy.
If the past is overflowing.
If it's overflowing, then it's not easy for you to just adapt into what's happening.
Yeah. And, you know, the crazy thing is the past will overflow.
All the time.
That's the nature of the past.
So as we're talking like this,
that's what's happening.
It's all the past.
Yeah. So you're telling me about what happened.
It's all
Sunday.
the past.
Yeah.
You know?
I wanted to realize that first. That is the case. The past is overflowing. You can't help it.
Yes.
Right? Realizing that is important. Not because we introduce a lot of conflicts for no reason. You know, I'm angry, but I must not be angry. What makes you think you mustn't be angry? You're angry. find out what anger is. Yeah, be with that thing as it's happening, right? And you discover that the moment you start looking at it, it's running away.
It's running away.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that, because like I love my mom more than any other human in this world. That's one thing. But when she starts like getting angry, normally I joke and say she's got bipolar, right? Well,
That's
most
a
old
terrible
people,
joke.
most old people have bipolar. It's
Yeah.
just one common thing that we can never be proud to say. But anyway, like she'd bring up a topic that is so sensitive, and I'd feel like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky, you my mom. I would have jumped on you and choked you or something. But now, like I've come to realize that when she says those things, she's not talking to me.
She's talking to herself.
She's talking to the younger version of herself.
Yeah.
She's trying to hold me not to repeat the same mistakes that she did, not knowing that I'd never think the same way that she thinks, or I'd never do things the way that she did things. So when she comes heavy and she starts using all these insults and all these heavy words just for me to understand, I've come to realize that if I react, then that means I've lost. Whatever I say after that, I've lost, and I've not made a point, or I have not won that conversation. But when she starts and I keep quiet, I always feel like, oh my gosh, that's victory to me, you know, because she'll say all these awful things and act all weird and bossy. And when I don't say anything, I'll be just like, okay, sorry. You know, the guilt that comes with that, like it won't even take, if I respond and act towards the anger, then it would take us probably like 3 days before we can talk when we're all calm. But if I just let her understand that I know what you're saying, you're wrong according to my opinion, but I just want to give you the will that you're right. So I'm going to apologize and be the bigger person. So when I do that, she always comes down. And then she'll now negotiate a great conversation, because now she realizes that she didn't think. She acted according to her emotions. Like that word I just said went straight to her past. Maybe something that even happened like years before I was even born. It's what she experienced. And then when I answer in a certain way, it's going to go straight to that. It's crazy how the mind works.
Yeah.
It goes to something that happened in 1960 what. But if I just say that word that she once heard and it made her life miserable, then she'll attack me.
Yeah.
That's not her attacking. It's the memory.
It's
you
a
know,
memory. It's
so it's crazy.
no,
you know.
so you see, basically that's a big thing, because a man really has to understand we have to die to all of that. Otherwise, we're not really living. Now, suppose you do that, right? You really, first of all, you discover that you're in conflict with yourself. You can't help yourself. You're in conflict. The past is always in conflict with the present. You realize it, which means you become much more alive, right, to what is happening to you. Naturally, you don't have to cultivate being alive. Naturally, as you start discovering about yourself, okay, you become much more aware of yourself. Which means you're discovering not only about you, yourself, but you're discovering about humanity itself, because that's what's happening in me, right? That's what's happening in your mom. Now, when you're having an argument with your mom, inevitably there's a conflict. Also yourself, there's a conflict.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because remember, there's even that whole idea of it's an argument and there's a possible way of winning it, of coming out of it on top of the other, right? You recognize that. Now, it's no longer, I wouldn't call that conflict, because the moment there's that realization, you've understood that you're kind of caught in that. She's also caught in that. You are actually now attending to the person.
Looking for a solution.
Yeah, you are looking for a solution. You're not fighting her. You're really just listening to the person. Now, if you listen so deep like that, you discover that you're listening to what's behind the words. You are literally picking up her thoughts, not just the words. Because normally what happens if someone is saying something, right? I interpret it, I get the words, and then my thoughts block the connection. Then I get into my own garbage.
That's true.
But if you've stopped your thoughts and you stop it by listening, attending to the person, I'm really just interested in what you are saying, right? Then your mind is no longer yours. It's a general thing. It's not my mind attending to your mind. It's the mind itself. And then you listen to really, for the first time now, you really listen to someone, you know, the history, the hidden things she's not telling you. Yeah, the hopes, the fear, which automatically gives you compassion because you see this person completely overtaken in this thing, caught in it, not here. Now you're looking at death literally in front of you because this is a dead thing.
It is.
It's a dead thing that is trying to come here. Which means what? If you really push it far enough in the sense that you really give that attention, right? Then what you're looking at here is death. Death isn't something separate from life, you know, life, the whole conflict again.
I love what you just said. I've been waiting for you to say it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no separation from death and life.
Yeah, it's not something, you know, we used to this whole idea of inside and outside. This and that.
And it's actually one.
Yeah, there's no such thing. I mean,
you know, you can sound crazy to somebody who doesn't understand what you're saying. Like, they would be like, is this person okay? There is nothing. Like, honestly, there is just nothing. You see, out of this conversation,
yeah,
when we're done, we're probably going to get over it after some time.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, nah, I need another podcast. Like, what am I going to talk about? You know, I know that you don't plan what you're going to talk about. It randomly comes up. But when you've watched this and maybe over a couple of times, you're going to be bored over it. And you're like, okay, what's next? You know? So now, I don't know if it's possible for a human being mind to actually realize that there's nothing.
I think it's definitely possible.
You think so?
It's possible. Well, maybe we'll get there later, but it's definitely possible. But to know that it's possible, first you have to see what is impossible here, you know? And the impossible thing is I can't get out of my trap. I'm trapped.
That is one thing. I remember when we started talking, like, sometimes I'd feel like choking you over the phone, you know? When you say that, but it's the actual truth.
It's the truth.
Like,
you don't want to accept it because it hurts. Maybe it scares the hell out of you.
That there's no escaping.
That there's no escaping, but it's the truth.
So now back to what you just said. If there's no escaping this, if there's no controlling this,
there's no controller.
There's no controller.
Yeah.
Then what is the purpose of all this?
It has. Life has tremendous meaning, really. Before I get anywhere else, life is the most beautiful. I don't know. I don't even think we've come up with a name, a word for this. But we just vulgarize everything. You know, we just make a mess of everything because we're so caught up in our tiny little me. Everyone is a tiny little me out there.
I don't know how you're going to take this. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm crazy because if I try to have a friendship with, especially females, this is the most common thing that everyone talks about. You find this female for the next 2 years or 3 weeks or 3 days, whatever. That whole time you're given with them, you feel like, oh my gosh, I've made a best friend for myself. But then as time wins, you start having conversations. And then you realize that we actually have nothing in common. It was just that one experience that brought us together, and we actually thought that, oh my gosh, you and I think alike. Now this is it. But with time, like, everybody changes. If you don't change, then that means something is wrong. You understand? So, like, it makes it extremely difficult for me to even want to be around people. And like, my mom was like, you're depressed and you're not even seeing it. I'm like, no, I'm not depressed. Like, I've got so much conflict going on inside me. Imagine inviting other people to be part of this conflict, and then they're also bringing in their conflicts. And that's when actually everything starts going wrong. But I'm not saying, like, we should live without other people.
Impossible.
We should make friends. It's impossible.
Life is a relationship.
It's a connection. You understand? But when you're alone, there's so many things. Even like as you're making an example of this, like if it was 20 people and one suggested it, some would be like, that's highly impossible. Why would you think that's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
But if you think it alone, it has a way of manifesting.
Yeah, it's very important to discover something for yourself.
Exactly.
I think that's maybe unconsciously that's what you're trying to do. That's what most of us are trying to do. Because we want to find something real.
Yes.
We're tired of hearing out.
Is there anything that's authentic though?
There is.
Is it?
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, grab that bottle of water.
That's real.
Can you feel the cold of it?
Yes.
That's real. That's a simple example. I don't have to explain to you what cold is. It's real.
Yeah.
You discovered it. So the same way psychologically, if you really discover that I am anger, there's not me who's trying to control anger. At the moment of anger, I am all that. If you see it not as a theory, you really see it how you're playing tricks on yourself. That is real. But if you just listen to someone, like we do, you listen to gurus or pastors or what's telling you things.
Crazy.
Yeah, you just feel that sense of peace in a way because, maybe he's talking in a way, he's looking in a certain way, your own prejudice, and then you feel like, oh, I'm calm. The very moment you leave, then it comes back because you have not discovered anything for yourself. So
what you just said is so crazy. 2015, right? I had a friend from Zim, Bianca Kazozo. We stayed together and we're both pregnant, imagine. So she was like, she had issues that time with her partner. She was like, let's go to church. There's a church, I won't mention the church, but it's popular. Everyone talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
She was like, let's go to Pretoria. We took an Uber to Pretoria, right? That time it was not even Uber. 2015, we had to pay a cab to get there. And when we got there, like, I don't know if people ever like feel the shift when you enter, right? The presence immediately. We walked in there. She was like, we're going to be saved. She can feel it. That time, I was just going through my own things. I was just like, I'm here to support my friend. I've already seen the setup. I see there's ushers there. There's, what do you call these ones? There's the prison worship team. Like, everything is planned.
The beauty of the church, the building.
Once you walk into a church, I love, like, if I should ever go to church, like, I'd love to go to a church where everything is not programmed, where you won't see the ushers, where you won't see the people, the praise and worship, like where we are all just one. I'd go to that church. But when it's programmed, you already see the ushers walking up and down, or there's the person that's going to preach. When I see that this whole thing is organized, I get bored.
Yeah.
So she was like, oh, I'm saved, because she saw
organized
that.
Truth. Organized truth is no longer truth.
Exactly. So when you got there, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna have to share this. So then they said the pastor is not around, he's in Dubai, but they're gonna call him. So that's his son in spirit, right? So when it was time for deliverance,
son in spirit, what does that mean?
He's the father. Imagine.
Oh.
He's the father, then the son, and then the congregation is the Holy Spirit. That's how he defines it. Fine. So for him for the son to perform miracles, he had to call the father, and the father was in Dubai. So before he could even call the father, he started praying. And that time, I don't want to lie to you, I was that Christian, that born-again Christian, Anglican. If you're Anglican, you are taught in your church. If you go to other ministries, if there's one thing that you should know, never change the way that you pray. Don't adapt to what you find there. Stick to who you are. So I saw everyone they started praying in tongues. Wow, that's amazing for me. They start praying in tongues, and like everything, it's a movement. If you don't know the scams that go on, you'd be like, oh, this is so real. So now there's this thing that he did. I felt it, I don't want to lie. It started, for you to see how powerful the mind is. Nothing happened, it was just the mind. Then he started saying, when I blow this mic, may you feel the Holy Spirit's presence. And then he just went, people on the floor, falling. Bianca is next to me. Right? Yeah. But because she saw people and she also got in that motion, like, oh yeah, the Holy Spirit is here. He did it again. Then Bianca, with her, my tummy was not even showing that time. Hers was like extremely big. She went on the floor, boom. And when these people go on the floor, they don't wake up immediately. And then when he was doing it for the last time, can you see how much of a game this thing is? He noticed some people fell because he gave that power. You know, like when you pray, you believe everything is happening. And when like you emotionally awake, everything happens. You can fall. Like if you can start preaching now and we pray, I can fall because you've put me into that spirit.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what I'm doing, but because I've seen it on TV, I've seen it at church, I automatically believe this is it happening. So he did that, right? And then on the last one, I shaked. I shake like all the people were just down. And then I held onto my chair and I'm like, ugh, there's nothing that's happening here. He's telling us what to do. And because we are in spirits and we believe everything, because he gave a beautiful sermon. Now, what's going to happen? I had to talk to myself. You know, the mind did the things for me that day. Everyone in my row was down. And I was still standing.
Were you the devil in the room?
I was the devil, I suppose. So when you realize, I think it was something unusual for him, but when you realize that there's certain people that didn't fall, that's when he said he needs to connect to the spiritual father who was in Dubai. Then he did the same thing. Rah, 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 rah. People went like flies, boom, boom, boom. And I said to myself, I want to go home. This is boring now. You know, this is boring. And then in that moment, when they were telling people what to do, because you're in spirit, your mind has already told you that you are saved. This is what's happening. You have won this battle. Then you're going to believe anything that comes after that. The offerings they got that day were insane. And I really felt bad, like when we left, because my friend expected me to come with her the next day. And I said to her, no, the whole thing was a scam, obviously. I know you don't like the word supernatural, but there's things people use for people to feel weak. And if you're a weak person by nature, you fall into those traps. So I didn't feel anything for me because nothing was moved. Had it happened that something that I've always thought is impossible happened that day, I was going to believe then it's real. I was still myself. I didn't fall. Maybe I didn't see myself flying up the wall. That would have made me believe that shit is real. So if I can stand still when everyone is falling, I just realized that, wow, the mind is the master in all this game thing.
Which the powerful, a powerful sermon will give you the right kind of illusions you need. Because you already accept them. To you, they're not illusion, they're real. So the way I see it, everything you can think of is real. There's such thing as reality, quote reality, is anything you can think of, anything thoughts can come up with, right? In the realm of thoughts. But truth has got nothing to do with reality whatsoever. Truth is alone. You can't touch it. It's there. It can never be corrupted. The reality,
it never gets old. It's just there.
Yeah, it's there. But with you can come up with the most crazy illusions, and they're real. I mean, people used to believe, I don't know, maybe the sun is our God or whatever.
Don't say that, because I used to be like that.
It's, many people.
But do you know what made me to be like that?
What?
It's crazy. It's the same person that I've got this friend that always like puts me in the most uncomfortable space when it comes to my peace. You know? So she was like, we haven't been together in a long time, so let's be together. And rent was due for me, right? So we went out. I actually had a great time. And I even met somebody that I thought was going to be the love of my life. But it was like, rent is due. The fun is over, even though it's still going to be fun. But when we leave here, what's the plan, right? I went outside because I read somewhere that when you catch the morning sun and then you let it hit your pineal gland and then like, you pray to it, everything's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? I went there outside. Like, this is a true story. I went outside and I said, Son of God. You know, I used to do it. Like, I stopped maybe like a year ago. I said, Son of God, you're the one that is a reflection that God is really real. You know, I don't believe in the Son, Jesus, because if he was human like me, it means he was bound to fall for any trap. So I believe in you because you've never lived like him. He has never came back. I see you every day. I believe you're you know, I worship the Son. I'll say all these things. And then when I'm done worshiping the Son, I would now ask, like something used to happen in my body. Like I felt like there was a real connection, right? And then I'd be like, I don't have a plan. That day, I was convinced the sun really works. I was like, I don't have a plan, but I really need that 1.2 for my rings, and that's all I needed. And then I went inside, I was chilled, we had a great time. You know how crazy the mind is? I was nicer to the people that I was with than I was the day before, right? Especially the potential boyfriend. Now the mind has realized that he's rich, went outside to pray to the sun, that the sun must make a miracle so he gives me money. So I had the courage to actually say, you know what, guys, I'd love to chill, because they were like, we should go shopping. We're spending 2 more days. They've extended the visit, right? And then I was like, I'd love to chill, but then now my rent is due. I even made a higher amount, right? And maybe I'll see them before they leave. And then they asked the amount, and I said it. They asked me to bring the landlord's account. And I was like, what the sun?
Yeah.
When I actually did it, the sun had nothing to do with it. I asked, you know, had I not asked, nothing was going to happen. I indirectly asked for money. And because they had it, they gave me. So after that, I was like, oh, the sun works. That is what I believe in. Even when I pray, I say, God, I felt your presence through the sun.
It's the same thing. I mean, you could use this bottle and make it into a deity. See, the bottle, as long as I have got this bottle, everything works for me. And you're gonna associate everything that is working for you to this thing.
Of course.
Yeah, simple like that, right? But you never seem to go further enough to say, okay, first of all, you don't realize that it was your thinking. You were just, you know, first you divide. There's the sun there, the God sun. It's gonna do this. You don't realize what's happening in you.
That whole conflict.
Yeah, the whole conflict, the whole thinking happening. Now, when you start realizing what's happening in you, you've gotten to another level. It's like saying, okay, fine, I really want to go to the bottom of this thing. And then you go to the bottom of it, you realize that actually I'm not even there. Psychologically, I doesn't exist. And that's why thinking is there. Because you can't stand death. Real death. You know, I really believe, I hate that word believe, because you don't have to believe if you see something. You only believe when you're not sure. But if you have not understood death as you're alive, if death doesn't happen as you're living, you're caught in something horrific.
But wait, before, you know one thing about me. I never act as if I know when I don't. We've come to this earth, and there's words that are given to us. When somebody dies, that's death. When somebody is living, then that's life. They are alive, you know. But before we can even go on, you can make all these examples and everything. But what is death?
We've been talking about it. We can go through it again. Death, for instance, physical death, we leave that, right? Death is the psychological death, which is realizing that I do not exist. There's no thinker separate from thoughts. It's one thing. Because that is the thing that's saying I, right? So when there's that death, it means you're not personal anymore. The self, you're not selfish. Most people think selfish is me having this bottle of water, I don't want to give it to you, I don't want to share. No. That's just a reaction to being selfish. But selfish is when the self is. And as long as the self is, it means there's a center to which everything has to revolve around, right? Without realizing that the self doesn't exist in the first place. And the self has to be made, manufactured, because it can't stand, there's that, I can't even say it can't stand because it's really an image, it's not there. But somehow death is terrifying to the common mind, the human mind. So death is realizing that psychologically I do not exist. I is in existence. It doesn't exist at all. But see what happens. When you realize that, you die to yourself. Really die to yourself. As I'm sitting here, as we've been talking, I've been dying to myself from time to time. right? That means I'm living with death, right? And that allows you to see what death is physically, literally, because you are it.
You just made a lot of sense right now. You just made a lot of sense. Like, if I'm alive, then why should I be scared of death? Because it's part of me.
Yeah, it is there. It's happening there. I mean, everywhere. Everything is dying. The sun is dying.
Like, literally, every now and then, everything dies.
It's dying. Just give it some time, it's going to die.
Not even some time, like, literally. Anytime there is a sort of movement or a connection, something dies.
So basically, you can say everything is dying except death.
Yeah.
Everything else is dying.
Yeah,
the death is kind of like permanent. So death is that nothingness. That's that thing that cannot be divided. Right?
So if you're saying it's that thing that cannot be divided, you're basically saying we are death. We are part of death. We are death.
We are death. Except you can't really say it. The moment you say it, you kind of like run away. But you really, death is all there is.
I want to answer you, but I know if I answer you in a certain way, you won't even understand. The words are there to actually agree to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And make it make a lot of sense, but it won't make sense.
No, first of all, what we're talking about here cannot be described with words. We're just going to sound like, I mean, any educated, well-programmed man right now listening to this like these what are they talking about? But you have to look at it, It has to be action.
I'm so glad like this conversation is not something that I had to prepare for myself. Because before I got here, I was like, I know this is what we're going to talk about. If you know how prepared I am.
No, you can't. You don't even try to prepare yourself because it's something we're discovering, we're learning right now, we're watching, right? So the self dies, right? You discover what the self is, and that is, it's not there, it doesn't exist. Then what is there?
It's scary.
There's nothing there. The moment you try to say
it's
something
scary.
is there.
Do you know that it's scary looking at it?
Yeah, I get it's scary, but hold on. It becomes scary when you try to cling on to something.
Do you know why I'm saying it's scary? Because I can mention 1,000,000 things to make it sound like it's there. And I'll still keep getting it wrong. We can sit here the whole day.
Yeah.
I'll keep getting it wrong.
You're getting it wrong because you see, you're trying to describe.
But when I realize that it's nothing.
Yeah. You see, you can never get it right because the moment you try to get it right is you denying it.
Yeah.
You literally now you're starting to witness creation at the deepest level. The very moment you try to run away from it, you witnessing creation, right? Actually, not some idea of what creation is. It's a movement, The whole thing, dying, living, not being there, kind of like that. That's how the self is, right?
It's just like knowing that I'm here talking to you, but I'm actually not talking to you. I'm talking to myself. Because it's like when I ask you a question, that's not me, like as you said, the whole division. That's not me asking. It is what it is. That's asking and it wants clarification, but I won't get it alone. You understand? So I'm here having a conversation with you, but I'm also not having a conversation with you. Does that make sense?
I mean, I get what you're trying to say.
Right.
Stick with that. Let's follow that idea, or not idea, that thing, that part. So now it's not personal anymore. Before it was personal. Your thoughts, right? You're looking, trying to protect yourself,
understand,
to get the pleasure, the fear of death. Therefore, you cling on to pleasure. That whole thing is happening. But now you realize, okay, this is what's happening. There's no division. The self, I, don't exist. Something else is happening. It's not personal. You've gotten over yourself. You're too small.
Too small?
Yeah. There's something else happening.
That's bigger.
Which doesn't involve me or that person as separate people. Now, what is that?
I don't know.
Yeah, clearly, there's no way you can know, first of all. I can't be part of that conversation. So, that's being in, how do you call it? What do you say it in English? Sometimes I'm lost for words,
You
I'm
can
still
take your
learning.
time.
Yeah. But it's O-A-W-E, being in awe. That's literally the definition of being in awe. You don't understand what is that. The very moment you try, you're denying that whole thing.
To come to you.
Yeah. But you really have no idea what is going on. So what we do is we try to rationalize everything, analyze everything, which is the whole design of thought. Create, we put shapes. We say this is up, this
We
is
label
down.
things.
Yeah, up, down, left, right. But there's no such thing as up in space. Space doesn't have a corner.
Speaking about space, right? I remember last year, I was so high from weed and I was talking to you. And you said, Tutu, why would you think space is somewhere out there when you're already in space? And you're like, can you feel the earth moving? I said to myself, I was going to stop smoking weed because immediately you said, can you feel the earth moving? It was like, I could feel what you're saying. Like the earth is moving.
Right now it's moving at thousands and thousands of miles. We can't feel it, but this thing is really happening.
But you know how I felt it that day? Like, it sounds so weird. You might not even believe me. I felt it when you said that. Because I think it even took me some time to get back to you when you said, you're already in space. You're right? The earth is moving. Like, I said to myself, if my mind can think of asking you this question and I've already answered myself before you can answer me, and when you say the earth is moving, I'm already feeling like the earth is moving, that means it is fucking moving. I am it. Like, if I'm part of it, that means I am it. You understand? So that whole thing made me realize that, you know what, knowledge is good, right? But wisdom is better.
Knowledge is very limited.
Yeah.
As we were talking, I just thought of something, movement, right? Life is movement, right? Even when you look at thought, psychologically, there's that movement of thought after another. Thoughts trying to catch up with the present without realizing that it's always going backwards.
I hate that.
Yeah. So it's creating that movement. So when you've realized that the self is illusory, that realization stops the movement, right? There's no movement, which means there's no time anymore, in the sense that, because time is also movement, moving from here to there, that takes time, right? What else? Spinning of the earth, it takes, I don't know, for 24 hours, we've got a day. Everything is movement, and that is time. So now when that movement stops, that's the only time actually that there could be ever clarity in the mind, at least psychologically.
It's like when you go to bed.
Yeah, unfortunately, when we go to bed, the movement keeps going on.
But then, like, sometimes, if, let's say I say something wrong as we're recording, right? And then later I'll be like, oh man, boss, I shouldn't have said this way. I shouldn't have said that this way. I should have used this way. And then when you actually realize that, it's too late. I feel like when we're much calmer and when we're not looking, right, that is when the mind or the self is actually like able to produce something that is fruitful and something that is much more useful and necessary. Unlike when we're looking. I think that's the most powerful thing about the mind that I don't like. Like when you're looking, when the mind is just like having a battle of thoughts, emotions, and all of that, that is where it's a problem. But when you're much calm and when you're not even thinking or trying to figure out, that's where it automatically comes.
And that happens because you can only you can create something new only when you're not thinking. Because when you're thinking, it's always the old, right? So when you cool down a little bit, then somehow like an idea pops out of nowhere.
Right.
Because you've literally created something new that will always overcome the old. The problem is using words to describe these things. First of all, it sounds a little bit too poetic. It's got nothing to do with, sentimentality or what's
So you see what I was trying to say?
Yeah.
Like, you know it, like nobody can ever change the fact that you know it. But then when you now start labeling it, you've lost it.
Yeah.
Completely.
So I don't know, something was popping in my mind. It just ran away. But it was very interesting. Yeah, I was talking about movement. When that movement stops, I was saying when you go to sleep, still the movement goes on because you dreamed there.
So you're saying when you dream, it's still you.
Yeah, it's very much you.
So all these people that like go around, but my dreams sometimes have also been accurate.
Yeah, what is the brain? The brain is like a prediction machine. According to the past, you can predict. The gentleman that was helping us here with the audio and the sound, you can literally anticipate that it's going to come back when we're done.
Mm-hmm.
You can predict that. So what's so amazing when you predict that your child gets you a toy exactly how you saw it in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
It happens the next day. Why do you take it to be extraordinary? You see, that's how these people crook others, you see. They have these tiny feats that they can do. Prophets, for instance, something happens, you can dream of you maybe getting a car or getting involved into some sort of incident. Then it tells you that. Because the mind, as you were sleeping, was a little bit more quiet as you were sleeping. And then he kind of picks up, he sees the new being made. And then he gets to you. And then you just see it. It's kind of, I feel like he's robbing you of something. Robbing you in the sense of, instead of telling someone these things, so that, again, you can hit yourself, always you're cultivating that sense of the self, of saying, I'm the special one, I can do this, I can predict the future, for instance, which is completely wrong. You're not special. You're exactly as the other person. What you should be talking about is help the other person see the new for themselves, not be a slave to you showing them the new.
I think that's what generally the world is messed up from. Because I remember, was it 2019 or 2020? I had this other friend, Cindy, and Cindy had then done skin lightening. So she's like to me, I've seen how you are when we go out. It's like you attract people and all of that. But can you imagine if you're like a shade lighter, how it's going to be? That is Cindy's idea, not even mine. And then she tells me, because I see she's beautiful, right? And she tells me that, oh yeah, I've done this skin lightening,
right.
So that's why you're seeing everything so bizarre. And I say to myself, I'm definitely gonna do it. I honestly say this all the time. Like, if there's anyone that is ever thinking of changing their appearance, it was never because they want the world to see them a certain way, because the world could have actually preferred the old version, but because they've made up their mind that, no, this is what's going to work and it's going to work. I did the skin lightening, right? Until today, it's something I can't reverse, right? And deep down, had I given myself to know more about it, I would have never tried it. I would have just stayed that way. Because when I look at it now, I'm seeing models.
Yeah, the world is reverting back to the black.
What?
Yeah, to the dark.
They are so beautiful, and with the advanced makeup now, you can literally be anything that you want to be. And I said to myself, that time, I wasn't thinking straight. I was thinking of a short period on how I can come out of a situation that I was actually going through. And if beauty was going to do it, then it was ideal. Guess what? Years later, I realized that it's nothing like that. Whatever, even if you can be that light skin, even if you can be that beautiful, but if your personality is off, then there's nothing that can actually make you to be attached to the things that you want to attract. And I said to myself then, how do I come out of this yes, it's something that I can't reverse, but I can always have a choice to stop. But then how am I going to get my confidence back? Because if you do skin lightening, it's definitely going to show. It's not going to balance. You understand? So I said to myself, there are people that don't know you. There are people that don't even care what you do. But now how you project yourself to the outside world, let it be not of what you are thinking is great for people. People are different. Some people like charcoal. Some people are for a top deck. Some people are for caramel, you know. So with all these different people, why am I getting myself so mixed and not accepting to the reality?
You know, that's a terrible thing, because what is it that we are really looking for as human
Acceptance.
beings?
For me, my best struggle in this life
You
has
think
been
you're looking for acceptance?
yeah.
Really?
With me, I don't know
Or
about other
that's
people.
one of the many other things you're looking for?
For me personally, I'd confidently say it's acceptance.
Mm.
Growing up with a mother that was, I know that my biological father really emotionally abused her, right? So she had to move on. Like when I hear the stories that went down, like from my stepsisters, because me and my stepsisters are all friends. But when we listen to the things that our dad did to our mothers and how they know each other, like it's terrifying that a man that we love and that gave us a chance to be part of this life journey did this to them. So for me, I felt like, oh wow, my mom is getting married. I'm having siblings that I don't share the same surname with. And now I've got a stepdad that really loves me and he still loves me till date. You understand? But now I want to feel as if I'm part of them without this, you know, wall, the surname thing. And obviously, yeah. And then the best thing at that time that I could do for myself is now compare myself or look at what my siblings are doing or anyone that is accepted in their family, what they do. Till dates, like I still feel like there's no acceptance for me. But guess what? I've been wrong like all this time, right? If my stepdad was able to take me in as his child, that whole acceptance was done then. But because I felt like I needed to do more, you know, to fully be part of them, they kind of like push me out even wherever I go outside the world. Like even if I date someone, I'd expect that father figure because yes, that's my stepdad, he loves me, but I want to feel what it's like to be loved like a baby from someone you don't know. And that's me yearning for my biological
You're
dad's love.
looking for love, literally.
So I got into friendships and I'd be like, oh man, this is not gonna work for me.
Now wait, so let me show you something. Look, look the trap you're getting yourself involved into. You say you've done things because you've wanted to get acceptance, right? Because of what happened, because of time. Then you go to your dad, for instance, the way he behaved that way, or your mother, is because of something that happened to them before.
And that's me carrying the past with me.
Yeah. Then you go to their grandparents because of what happened to them before. Then you go to because of what happened to Earth, the animal. Then if you are Christian, it's because of Adam and Eve. There's no end to that game. The problem isn't there.
It's
here. It's always been here. So that's why I'm saying, if you have not seen what death is, you live in something horrific. You have no idea what you're caught into. Unfortunately, that's 99% of us.
We'll always live in the past. Okay, well, let me not speak for everyone.
Yeah.
But majority will always live in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Will always live there. I mean, look at me, old as I am now. I'm still looking just for that acceptance. And in my mind, I have this thing that if I can just get that person or that place or wherever where I feel accepted, I feel I can achieve more things that I'm failing as it is now. When the actual thing, like as we're having this conversation, I'm realizing that no, it's not even like that. You've been accepted. Like my presence alone, being on this earth, that means I qualify to be here. I've been accepted to be here. But then that's still my mind fucking with me, thinking I should look for approval.
Yeah.
You know?
You want to be basically looking for a connection, right? And in the very act of looking for a connection, you're separating yourself, right? It's like when we build up countries, we wanted to unite. But in the very act of uniting, we separate ourselves from
Dividing.
other countries. Same thing for tribe, right? It's something for religions. Something for anything you can think of in this world. Man-made is divided. You go to the academia, it's divided. It's like that. We can't do anything about it. And we are willing to cover it up with personal incidents of this is what happened, because you don't want to look at the real thing all the time. You can't face it.
I remember I said to you last year, I'm so depressed. Nothing is going my way. I want to kill myself. I don't want to live.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, die, Tutu. Immediately you said that, like, I had that heartbeat. It was heavy, like, die. You don't want to live anymore, right? Then die. There's nothing. Like, don't be stressing yourself. Die. And then I just looked around, and then I started seeing the kids. I started seeing the family. I started thinking of others, how they're going to feel once I've left. And then immediately you said that, like, I started addressing the main issue. And let me tell you something, like, I feel like it happens with most people. I've been the one that's toxic. And I've been thinking that, no.
We are toxic.
My
to
parents,
ourselves,
my
to
parents
each other.
are toxic. My family is toxic. My friends, when the actual fact is, I've been toxic because with me, and it's something that I'm working on daily. With me, it's like, if you don't understand what I'm saying, you don't see the picture, you don't get what I'm saying, then why are you in my life?
Yeah.
I don't need you, because now you're going to make me think otherwise, especially when I'm certain about something, right?
Do you see the selfishness of that?
I am. Like, that's one thing. I've always thought that I'm this selfless person just by giving.
Saying I'm selfless is selfish.
You see? Like, by giving, I ask myself these things. So by giving people chances, or giving out your old clothes, or being merciful, you think you're selfless? No. You're very selfish. And when I looked around, I'm like, oh, I'm that type of person that is like, if it's not my way, then there's no way. That means I'm the most selfish human being to ever exist. You know, so like when it comes to this life, I think the very first step before even having to understand anything you're saying is to actually just be humble.
Yeah, find out about yourself, really.
Yeah.
That's where it starts.
Yeah.
And the very act of doing that, you become humble, you become compassionate, you know. You really realize that I'm caught in the same boat as these people. Why make it even worse? So when you reach there, now you find you have a different problem. That is, you know you're caught in something. Let's say we're caught in this room together, but this person doesn't know. They've been bumping the walls. I'm trying to tell them they're caught. I'm the only one sitting, right? That's all. That's my job now, of telling people, please stop banging. Stop banging. Right? Let's sit down. Unfortunately, the moment you sit down, you're no longer in this room. You discover that not only you are the one sitting, you're the one banging, you're also the wall. You're the whole thing. Now it's almost as if you live life on two different levels, which is being there, not being there at the same time. Now this person here who's realized that now can really cry for the first time. Cry not out of self-pity, but really cry like, oh my God.
There's no way out.
Because he's not, the way out is literally being the whole thing. Because being the whole room and the people banging the room
is the way out.
Is the way out. There's no jail when you're the whole thing, when you're the jail. There's the jail only when you're locked up in the jail. Unfortunately, I have to come here as boss who's locked in the jail and cry and say that we can't get out of here.
But how do we get out?
By realizing that you're caught. Accept staying with that fact, which is why I always talk about, I like to talk about things that are really happening. For example, anger. When you're angry, stay with that. Don't say I mustn't be angry. Stay with that. It goes away.
You know, you're right. I hate to admit this. I'm laughing, like, as you're talking, right? I'm thinking, I had an experience where it's just a similar thing. I was angry. Like, I asked you to do something, do it now. That's my mom. She's in hospital at the moment. I asked her that I'm going to Joburg on Saturday. Send me money before I leave. Gave her a notice. She didn't attend to it until she was admitted in hospital. And by the time she asked me to send the number that she was going to use for money, I made a mistake. Because now I'm frustrated. I've been telling you, and you didn't do it. And now you were stuck there. Had I just decided to just let her be, do you know that I would have had that money without any problem? And if she didn't send the money, I would have made an alternative for that money, right?
So you've made things worse for yourself.
I've made things worse for myself. But now, when I look at how angry I was before she was admitted, right? And I didn't even lie about it. When she was in hospital, I told her I still need the money. And she felt like I was being insensitive. I didn't care at that point because that is just me being mad. Like, you know you're supposed to do something. Now look at you. You're stuck there. Now still do it. You understand? When she said she was admitted, I didn't feel bad.
Yeah.
And it feels so wrong to say I didn't feel bad, right?
Yeah.
Until today.
All you were at that moment was anger.
Until today, I still don't feel bad. I feel like I want to agree to the point what you're saying is that if you're mad, be mad.
Be mad. Watch it.
Yes.
See where it's taking you.
Eventually, you're going to get bored of being mad. And then it's going to wash off. Like today, I'm not mad at her. I'm just like, whatever that person, as from today going to our lifetime, whatever that person says, I really don't take it to my mind. I don't take it to heart. If she does it, she does it. If she doesn't do it, she doesn't do it. But it's also good because it's teaching me to never rely on anybody, like never rely on a human being.
No,
you understand?
Don't say, I'm doing this, and the good thing is I'm going to be able to, the price at the end, right? You're angry. Look at it, right? The most amazing thing happened. Okay, this is what's happening. And me, I'm trying to, because it's uncomfortable, right? You have to say, no, it has to stop. The guy who's saying it has to stop is the one still who's anger, right? That can only happen if you've understood this thing of thinking. You catch yourself as, okay, I'm really angry, but I have to stop being. Still, it's anger. You understand that you have no other choice but to be angry. That's all you are at that moment.
But now, what do you call it when it reaches that point? Like, boss, I'm not joking. Like, I'm serious. With me, I've reached that point where I'm just like, okay. You know? I love it when I'm angry. At least I feel that I'm angry.
Oh, you mean you reach a point where you feel like there's nothing.
Yeah.
Kind of. There's.
I can't be beating myself up.
You want something.
Maybe.
Yeah. You want something. That's why I was asking the question. What is it that we're really looking for? Trust me, it's not acceptance.
Do you know what I think?
That's one of the things.
Do you know what I think?
Yeah.
We don't know what we're looking for. Because now I can say I want 5K. If I get 5K, my whole world is going to change.
You can get 500.
Once I get the 5K or more, I'm just like, I need something else. I feel like the self is always searching. It's always in
just like thought, cutting itself, moving. The moment it gets there, it has to move. It can't stop. So the same way, what is it that as a human being we are looking for? It's not money. You will get it, it won't be enough. It's not enough kids. You get them, because for a lady or a man who can't have kids right now, that's the whole thing, I need a child. If I could have a child of my own, then okay, fine, I'm going to adopt, right? If you get the kid, it's not enough. You want power, right? You get that power, you get bored of it, You've had the money, people are laying down to greet you. You get bored of it. At some point, you even want to go back to
the poor ways.
Yeah, the poor ways, so that you can feel again how it is to climb up. But it can never be the same, because it's like, it's not new.
What is it that we're actually looking for?
So what we're looking for is something we cannot get by force, first of all. Because we are caught.
What do you think that is, though?
We're looking for something original.
Is it possible to get it?
Yeah, it is possible. We're looking for something, the source of everything. I would say the closest people to follow this, to be inquisitive, will be the pastors, the religious people. But unfortunately, they're caught in something even more atrocious. That's really what we're looking for. We're looking for the meaning of this whole thing, you know.
But is there a meaning to this thing?
There is a meaning.
Are you serious?
Yeah, there's a meaning, but there's, of course, I can't tell you. You have to find the meaning. Yeah, you have to inquire yourself. I can come here and tell you all about the meaning. What does it mean? It's nothing. But until you discover the source of it, which means you are that now.
I'm the source.
Oh, yeah, you know.
I know you don't want to generalize, but
yeah. I don't want to say that because you can't say I am the source. Clearly, you're not when you say that. But that is the case. When you discover the source can only be there when it's itself. You can't say, I am here now, I discovered the source, almost as if you are separate from the source.
Aish, man, I love what you just said. It's just like, I'm sorry to use this example, but it's just like when the pastor says, God resides in you.
Yeah.
God is in you.
And I hate that.
But now, when he starts preaching, he will now tell you that he'll give you a strategy on how to reach out to God. How do you reach out to something that you are? Something that is you, something that is new. You understand?
First of all, when you can't reach something that you are because you already are in the sense.
You already is.
Yeah, in the sense, I just want to make that clear. First of all, I don't know what God means to me. I get the point, the message they're trying to give, you know, also what people mean by God, but it's completely wrong. It's illusory. Saying God, you know, something out there.
Or saying God something, is a man.
Yeah, or something in me. So there's a me and then there's something in there.
The division again.
The division again. All you know is the trap. Stay in your trap. Stay in your place. Why are you being so arrogant? Stay
if you don't
in
if you don't mind me asking,
yeah.
right? I think that thing is one thing that most commonly, I don't know if I'm out of topic, but it's one of the things that I battle with the most. I've seen myself, like when I'm in trouble, like deep trouble. I'll remember there's something like prayer.
Yeah.
And I'll now go like, oh God, you know, I'm your child because you did that.
First you praise.
I'm talking to myself. Yeah, I need you to do this. I need you to come up for me. Then I suddenly feel alive after that.
Yeah.
Trust. Everything is going to be fine after that. And I'll be like, but why do I always deny God? See, God came through. God pulled through. I still did it. But I want to feel better by saying something that I believe in or someone that I believe in did it. You understand? And then this again, the whole
someone
confusion.
is responsible for you.
Yes, I'm the one that did it.
Responsible.
Yes, I did it. I said this must happen, and I think someone that I've never met, never seen, is just listening to me and all of us in this world at the same time, and that person did it.
So why do you deny your responsibility? Why do you run away from your responsibility? Because you're the one doing that, the whole movement. But why do you want to give that responsibility to something else, which you yourself you put there?
I think it's just the whole programming. Like, we've been programmed, and for you to unlearn, it's not something you do overnight. You understand?
I think you can.
Really?
It's very hard, of course, but I think you can. See, the problem I feel like this time thing, we feel like we should do everything gradually.
When we can do it all at once.
Yeah, when we can do it, doing that does not involve time. In fact, it's the very denial of time entirely. But now when you have the idea that I'm going to do it gradually, you actually don't realize that you've put up an equation that you can never get out of. That's why you never reach there. You always, you know, it's like, I'm going to change eventually. But in the meantime, let's say you're an addict. That's the whole concept, right? I'm going to change eventually. But today you're still smoking or heroin, whatever, which making it even more hard. To get to the results you want. You've put up an equation that you can never get out of.
That's a great example. Like, the way I hate cigarettes right now, I think that's the only first drug thing I started doing, right? And I got so addicted. But there was just a day where I was like, what's the purpose of this shit that I'm doing? Like, okay, I smoke, I inhale the smoke and I take it out, nothing happens, you know? But I think I've calmed myself from getting angry. I've quenched, you know, I've managed to maintain the craving. That time, none of it is happening, like zero. But it got different with weed. With weed, I knew, oh, I'm getting high. I'd feel that I'm getting high. Oh, I'm loving the feeling. And I now start to think.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be positive thinking, sometimes it'll be negative. But that was better. The smoke did something, unlike the cigarettes. So I was like, no, I'm stopping cigarettes. I don't need pills. I don't need anything. For somebody who used to smoke a box in 3 days,
Yeah.
I told myself on just one day, like, this is not good for my health. This is not good for me. I'm stopping. And it's been good 3 years. I haven't. You understand what I mean?
I'm glad you're done.
You're right.
So always seeking pleasure because you want something. You want to feel different. You're bored of life.
We're bored.
Yeah.
You're so right. We are so bored.
You're bored of life. So actually, what we're doing most of the time is to try to get away from the boredom, including the most atrocious thing like wars, for instance. You know, we have to do something. Must happen. You know.
You just made me realize something I want to love so hard.
Yeah.
For me to leave home and be like, all these small business I'm trying is just, this one is just for chickens. It's not going to work. Even if it works, it's going to take time. I'm not up for this. The weirdest idea that I came up with, right? I just posted. And I'm like, yo, guys, this is what's happening. If you're in, let me know. And if, without a plan, you know, it just came to my mind. And guess what? It's so crazy how anything that you think of can manifest as long as you put in the hard work into it, you know? Immediately people started responding, oh, yes, I want that. I want that. I didn't even know where to get it. I want that. I want that. But I knew in my mind that, you know, as Joburg is the place of a hustle, I'll get it. And I definitely did. You understand? So I agree with you on that point very much that we're bored.
Yeah, we're bored out of our lives.
We're bored.
Because we don't know what's
Because we've
new.
lived. That's the thing. We've lived. And for us to feel alive, we feel like we need to try something that's going to make us feel like, oh, we are actually moving.
Yeah.
We are going somewhere because we've lived. Like, it's all done.
In fact, we've lived wrongly. You know, we don't know what living is. We live wrongly because we're always in the past, right? We don't know what new is, something new. But if you live while dying, which means you're discovering life as it goes, which means you know what creation is. You're no longer a piece in the whole chess game. You're the board and the chess game and whatever. You can't be bored. There's no... this time thing is really... it's a...
illusion on its own.
Yeah, it's the creepiest trap and it's hell on earth. That's the closest thing I can put to hell, which is the idea of hell Christian people have is really horrible. It's too small. But this one here, it takes one to see it for you to really understand how terrible it is, you know, is people doing the same thing over and over. And you know, the most interesting thing is we think when we die, you know, die physically, the thing goes, it's finished.
It lives on.
It lives on. It's like a cycle. It goes on.
Are you sure?
Saying I'm sure, I hate using those definite words. But I'm willing to even go on and look at it. Because that's not something you discover 20 years from now by doing discipline. You can find out about it right now. For instance, you can discover that, let's say you're observing the earth. You can see that it's morning and night, right? Going on. That's real, you know? You're discovering that. So you can also discover about a death. If you die physically and you have not really understood anything, it goes on. And it's really the most horrific thing when I look at people. I don't know what can make someone feel that urgency of, okay, let me find out. Because we are so caught up in our routines, you see, in our ambitions, in our problems and what's not. You know, everything is becoming so complicated. We have to get money to eat. There's a responsibility of parents. there's my country, my pastor. If I did not come to church this Sunday, are they going to think now that I'm not so closer to Jesus Christ anymore? You know, that whole agony of life, how we've made it. Now you have these distractions on the phones. Unfortunately, we're using it for people to get to us. We have no other choice. And people are scrolling TikTok more. I have younger siblings, and they're there morning, night. They never look at the bird flying or hear the sound of a bird or just the green, how green the grass is.
You know, it's crazy when you start paying attention to those things. Like sometimes at home, I feel like they feel like I'm crazy, or they think I'm crazy rather. Because with me, like, I don't take anything for granted now that I'm growing up. First of all, the rain. Rain makes me so happy. Like whenever it rains, I always feel like something good is about to happen, or I'm receiving something. Like you can't just get rain anyhow. It's special to me, like to a sense that I even make sure I place out a bucket. Obviously now it's not that clean. You have to boil it, that whole process.
Yeah.
But I love rainwater, and it got to a point where I was like, if the rain can come to us on earth, so we can live. If I pray on this water, I do receive those so-called miracles, and it's nothing. It's still me doing it. The tap water, it could have been the same thing. It's just that it's so hard for everyone to accept that there's no need for us to place a certain belief.
Let me double check there.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I even forgot to put
the timer.
Oh no, good. We still.
Oh.
Yeah. No, you're right. And you know, when I look at those younger siblings, right? They ask them, so what? You don't look at the sky, the what's not. They're like, but what am I going to look at it? I've seen it so many times.
Another thing is, even if you can look at it, life is crazy. If I start realizing that, oh my gosh, this is blue and white, then now my focus is there.
Yeah.
Until I can move and then realize, oh, that's lime and green. And then now it's going to be a boring game of me looking around.
Yeah. It's boring because, first of all, you've already, you're making it, first you mustn't make it into a task. Your attention should be where your attention is, right? Not say, now I'm going to start looking at the green grass and so on, no. But when you have when you look at things with new eyes, kind of, you know, almost as a baby eyes type of, you're not faking it, you're not forcing yourself to, actually you've just discovered that the whole world has just started now. It comes from there. It's not me now, oh no, I'm going to look at everything is new. No, something just happened and you've just realized that the whole thing has just started now. It's never been a second old. Now you're really in awe with what is happening. You're not faking anything. Now, when you look at people, you know the natural course of events. You know, let's say I'm 35. I've had this experience. The brain has that. It has stored that. But deep down, deeper, you know how the whole thing just started now. It's only been ever made now. And that's a realization. You mustn't think about it. It requires tremendous inquiry, you know, finding about yourself. Who am I? Which means dying to yourself. Now you become, it's not personal anymore, which means it becomes the universe. You know, okay, now, if there's personal death, could there be universal death? You know, what does that mean? Then you go deeper and you get to a level where now you really, first, what we're talking about here is very rational in the sense that we can go bit by bit, see how thought works, for instance. We can also go physical and say how death is. So you start with the rational until you get to a point where like it's really impossible to be rational, which means I have to leave even all that knowledge aside.
You die from it.
You die from that. Then what is there is no longer personal. It's, you know, when I see people go to church and pray, I think they should do it. If it's working for them, it can't really work for them. But when I see people begging, crying, praising, I really feel like crying because there's nothing that you can do to get to that ultimate thing. You don't get to it. It gets to you. All you can do is know yourself. Yeah, I'm selfish. You're really honest with yourself. I'm very selfish. You know, I really seek pleasure. I don't know. I want more and more. I want more sex. I want more food. That's who I am. I can't do anything, and I'm trying to change that. And who is trying to change that? Okay, who is that? I am that. Okay, the self, what is it? The self is not even there. I'm caught. There's nothing that I can do. I'm caught here. When you've reached that level, which means you become very, very attentive. Life is, life is has a different meaning. You're really alive. Then it gets to you. There's nothing you can do. You can roll here for 200,000 years. You will never get to it. And you see them crying, begging, teaching the kids how to cry and beg. First you praise. You have to say a very nice thing about that. Then you introduce your demand, which is your selfish demand, because it's still going to hurt other people somehow, someone. Because you have not understood yourself. You're asking for more money. You get more money, what are you going to do with it? To step on people. You don't even realize you don't even need that in the first place. But anyway, you demand now. And then you thank. So that next time when you ask, all that is the movement of selfishness. You're talking to yourself. You're completely delusional.
Yeah.
But what can you do? Life is already harsh. You've been conditioned in so many other ways. What can you do? You have to do that. You have to beg. You have to cry.
But now thinking about it, like if a human lives without praying, having nothing to believe in, having no one to believe in.
Not even himself.
Not even himself. You can't believe in yourself.
Because you know yourself isn't there.
Yeah. If I can think that tomorrow I'm going to a podcast in the morning, I change and I say, no, there's more things I need to do that will actually elevate me, then, it's just a waste at the end of the day. So back to my point, I feel like this whole thing, the mind game, and obviously without it, there's no life. But I feel like if you just let everything flow, I think that's where actually everything, like life, begins for you. When you're not trying to
when you're trying to control.
Yes, when you're not trying to control anything, because I think you going to pray, that's you trying to control something that can't be controlled. The fear that, oh my gosh, if I don't pray for this money. I've had moments where I'd pray like never before and be certain that God is going to do it, and then there's nothing happens. My mom used to shout at me. I would say, fuck, there's no God, and fuck you, God, if you can hear me, fuck you. And they'll say, oh, you're going to be disabled, oh, something's going to happen. I'll say fuck you, Jesus, and the whole shit that you guys are saying. And I'd feel better, knowing that at least I was brave for that moment to actually be truthful to myself, to know that it's not there. It's just the fear that's driving me there. You understand? At the end of the day, if I can talk or if I can pray and nobody hears me and it's just myself,
there's no one to beg to.
There's no one to beg to. So I'm just literally here. It's like self, when you go to a psychologist, you become your psychologist unaware. You're talking to yourself. You're healing yourself through those words where you're praying. You say, God, deliver us, heal us, help us forgive. You are there, actually talking to yourself. And once you're done, you're going to be like, oh, this prayer was refreshing. I've actually decided that I'm going to forgive, boss. My God is powerful. I forgive. And the minute you think of that, you're forgiven. And it's something you have already done long time ago, but you just needed that clarity. So it's so sad for me, when I look around and I see that, especially at home, because I come from a very religious background, when it's prayer time, when I'm still stubborn about the whole thing, I'd be like, no, I'm not praying with you guys. And they'll be like, but it's all that we've taught you. How come you're saying you've left to the city, you're coming back to tell us that you no longer pray with us? And I'm like, okay, you're Jesus right now. Can you provide this for me? You guys know I've been battling with this for years. Depression is not something that you just wake up and say, I'm going to have depression, or you think it's going to happen. You don't even see it sometimes when it happens. You guys are here, 7 of you. Pray for me not to ever be depressed. Pray for me to wake up feeling fine. I'll pray with you guys. If I wake up feeling fine, then I'll be attached to it. Everyone will pray. They'll say you're delivered. In my mind, I'll be laughing and I'll be like, are they telling me or they telling themselves what they need to hear?
You know what's terrible is, I feel like we always go through that stage at some point. Okay, so if you're very religious, then you rebel against that because you feel it's not real, right? Unfortunately, you have nothing else. So people tend to just almost as if, we're just living and what's not, there's no real meaning to that as well. And that's what most young people are caught in these days. That's why you find so many coming with so many theories of.
Did I tell you
What?
that I was in a taxi?
Yeah.
I think 2 weeks ago. Then this girl, a childhood friend, we've not been talking for years. I even there was a gap where my friends were fighting with her and I had to discard her because I was taking my friend's side. Then suddenly we get into the same taxi. Then she's like, oh, Gogo, how are you? And the minute she said Gogo, I just didn't like that because I knew it was going to be some sort of a spiritual conversation. And I said, I'm fine, how are you? And then she's like, oh, you look so beautiful. And I'm like, oh, you also look amazing. We're not saying you're beautiful, physically. What I'm saying you're strong compared to the information that I have about you. And that is me responding to her like, oh my God, you're also strong. And then we laughed and then she's like, yo, we've been through things, right? And she's like, ever since I chose this journey for myself, I feel so light, I'm enlightened. I'm like, hey. And then I'm like, what are you on about? She's like, you need cleansing. She says that to me. She's like, I need cleansing. She can do it for me because now she's a Sangoma. What? So things can be fine. It's just that we people don't understand that our ancestors are real and that God is real. He gave us this will.
It's the same old trick, you see.
Do you know what I said to her?
Move from one thing to another thing.
Do you know what I said to her? I said, I've been an atheist. I've been a born again. I've been at a point where I felt like I'm spiritual and I saw things in my dreams and they were so accurate in everything. And I said to her, but out of all these things, I've already chosen that I don't want to be any of it. I just want to live. Isn't that the purpose of a human being? Imagine how boring life would be if you never have to actually come across problems. It would be boring if there's just solutions. There has to be those problems that would make you doubt yourself, doubt your awareness, everything about you. But now the thing is, with me, I don't ever want to say religion is bad, spirituality is bad, whatever. But I'm just always in my head, what is life without all these things? I feel like if I can have an honest understanding of what life really is, because I think that's the question everyone is running away from. What is life? Is there a purpose for life? Should there be even a purpose for life? Okay. And if there isn't, why is it? It's just an ongoing thing. So I feel like the more we come across people like you, it's a blessing. And, because you get to see that you are so little and you know nothing.
Yeah, and you cling onto your tiny little you.
Yeah. Because right now I'm excited that I'm here with you. As much as we're having this conversation, trust me, there's a million conversations I've had in my head regarding the things that you said. But now what makes me happy is that this is out of choice. To understand myself through you and for you to understand yourself through me. And it's not easy, as I'm having these conversations with you, you said the most important thing, dying from everything. It almost sounds impossible.
It's scary too.
Very, very.
Because that's all you are. You are those tiny little things put together. So leaving all that, what do you have now?
Nothing.
That's scary as hell. You are.
But what if that is everything?
Yeah. It is really everything. That's where everything comes from.
We all go around saying we have freedom. No one has freedom.
What do you mean freedom? Freedom is that exactly, not having to choose. Not having to choose between two alternatives. You're
just
free.
Doing, yes.
It is happening, you don't have to, a conflict between the two. And freedom means not just an idea, it's really, you look at it, you can see what freedom is. It's in your thinking process. You can see that you have no freedom. The very discovering that you have no freedom is freedom. You can't discover that you're caught in a jail until you've kind of somehow seen that there's a jail. At that very moment that you discover that you're in a jail, you must know that there's something out of the jail. How do you know that? But you just can't realize it, you see. It's too fast. It's too powerful. Yeah. But I was saying, so we don't have, young people don't have alternative. Not even young people. Old people as well. Okay, they say, if I leave this, then where do I go? Some of them live, this, it's like a political movement. Move from this one to this one. It works somehow for you for some time, you move to another. From one guru to another guru. From one psychologist to another.
Until you stop, that's when magic happens.
You have to stop. Because those people, then you discover that those people have been you in the first place.
And it's crazy because, like, I don't know why people get angry, especially my dad. Now we laugh about it. He'd be so mad when I say, why are you forcing me to speak about a man that I've never met? Not even in my dreams. Something that we black people most commonly believe is the only thing that is, always accurate. I've never seen this man in my dreams. I'll call him, he doesn't respond.
Sorry to interrupt you. This thing of dreaming, why do we dream? Why should we dream? To me, I don't know what dream is.
We must.
No, I know the whole scientific that as you go to sleep, you will dream, right? But see, to me, I see it again as a division, as in, during the day I'm awake, and then at night I dream.
And what if it's the actual opposite?
First, remove the opposite. It could be the opposite, as you're saying.
What if now, we say at nights that's when we're dreaming, but what if now is when we're dreaming, and then at nights that's where we live? Now,
see, that's a legit question. It's a valid question. But you have to pursue it. Don't say what if. Discover if that is the case. For example, let's say we're talking right now. You start discovering, okay, what if this is a dream really? And then you look, you find, okay, what is this? And that whole inquiry into oneself, who is it that is dreaming and so on. And then really you discover that this is a dream. Then you say, okay, fine, let me wake up. And you wake up in your bed there. Now, this sounds like a movie scene, right? This sounds like a movie scene. But find out. Don't say it's right or wrong. I'm wrong, it's just a theory. It's too crazy. Find out.
Is there even wrong and right in this life?
No, I wouldn't say wrong and right in the sense of this is good or bad. I guess the whole
I know
division,
that one, but then...
But there are definitely illusions. Things that you convince yourself to be actual, but they're not actual, So, I don't accept dreams. I don't accept gods. I see things exactly
the way they are.
And when I say I, you know what I mean. It's not, I'm not saying boss or whatever. That is it. I stay with the fact. Even the fact that I am not there, I'm just using it for communication purposes. Stay with the fact. Why do you want to color it?
Yeah.
And if you could stay with the fact, I promise you would realize there's no such thing as dreams.
Yeah, I think we just live with filter in our lives. Yeah. So much filtering.
And you can also be dreaming as you are right now, in the sense that when I'm talking to you, when you've had these stories, these conversations, these memories popping up in your head, it was happening to me too. As maybe you're telling me a story, and then I remember something
that is similar.
Or that I was supposed to be doing, telling my work colleagues or whatever. I think about it. I'm dreaming to the moment. I'm not here. It's a dream, right?
So why do we separate life from living from dreams? Isn't it the same thing?
It's the same. If you look at it, if you push it long enough, you see that there's no such thing as sleeping. You'd like to think you go to sleep and then I dream. There's no such thing as sleeping. The same way there's no such thing as, the way I see it, the whole thing of there's a thinking happening in me and therefore this is outside. to me, there's not that division. Thinking is this, right? So the same way dreaming is this. Being awake is dreaming, kind of. But then that, when you become attentive enough, if you're really attentive to life, right? And don't try and please. Don't do some of these things of, now I'm going to start doing this and, like the meditation thing. Don't do that. That's too childish. It's the same thing as going to a church or, I don't know. But when you become attentive to life, just really live, I'm angry. I really am angry. Oh, this is what's happening. I'm trying to stop it.
Express yourself the way you are at that moment, no filter.
Yeah. Don't be irresponsible as, fuck everybody, be vulgar. No. I am that. You can see what's happening in me, that whole conflict. I know I am that conflict. I wouldn't be there without the conflict. It's that sense of conflict that makes me feel I, right? You see it, you realize it from moment to moment. Then it means you really are seeing things exactly as they are, right? And also, it just so happens that there are these moments, really. And I wouldn't say it's when you most of the time people think it's when they're sleeping, right? And I guess I can say that, but it's not really, because to me there's no such thing as sleep, for instance. But when that clarity is so, so high, at certain moments, then you have complete freedom in what is it that is going on, in creating, not as a tutu or as boss. Creation literally, as in there's nothing that has ever been there. This is what's happening. So this moment, for instance, happening can be done in millions other ways. Literally, not, it's people
I get
make,
you.
yeah, people make these, movies too much now because probably it's a thinking process. That's what I was saying. Thinking is a con artist. It's always trying to copy the real thing. Yeah, but it can be done in so many other ways, infinite ways, really, and you get to say how it is being done. Unfortunately, as we want the control, now you feel like, now when you listen to that, you say, that would be good. I can make it snow right now, or money can I can create something that gonna make sure that money comes my way, which means what? You are enforcing again the selfishness, which means you're running away from that possibility again. You can't do anything to get to it. Yeah. The very act of trying to get to it to introduce a conflict, you're too small. But being humble, right? Being clear-minded, see things for what they are. And all we can see is what we see in our day-to-day routine. Don't go and close yourself in some tiny room for years because you're trying to get to something. No.
And then thinking that you come out.
Yeah. No, in your day-to-day life, in your pleasures, in your what's not, right? But then you have that clarity of the mind. Then there's really something mysterious in this world. I can't find a word to describe that. And I believe if a human being can really welcome that, not get to that, if that can be with the human mind.
What is it?
I don't know.
Life. Life is mysterious.
Yeah, well, it's everything all together, life there forever. But saying, what is it? Because the thing itself, right, comes out of that question, It's like the thing is asking a question, but the answer is the question itself. And that's the basis of life, the whole of life.
That sounds very weird.
Yeah, can you imagine the immensity of life itself, infinite space? It's just all the details of it. But it starts from something as simple as that. A question being an answer. But to find out that, you can't be worrying about your shoes. Or how I look to people.
You die from everything.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible, though?
It is possible.
How?
There's no how. When you ask for how, you want a guideline.
Yeah, that's true.
Who's gonna give you the guideline?
No one. Only you can give yourself.
You have to even die to yourself. You can't even give it to yourself.
So how do you get to it? You don't know.
You can't get to it. All you can get to is to know yourself, really, which means to die to yourself. Because when you get to know yourself, really, you discover that you do not exist. The idea of I, psychologically, is an illusion. I mean, we hear. I'm not denying that we hear. It's pretty obvious. I hope the audience doesn't think we're crazy. Yeah. So, which is why I like to start very rationally, so that when we start talking about the crazy, impossible thing, at least I'm not easily discarded. Yeah. But you don't get to it. What you can get to is the small little things here of our daily routines, which are amazing in its own, in and of itself. Right?
The ones that we can touch and see, it's easy to get.
The relationships.
The one that you can't touch or feel or see, but that can actually happen. That is the hardest.
That is the impossible. Leave it alone. So stay with the possible here first of all, like your relationships, the conflicts we have, the wars, the pleasures, finally discovering that you're caught into something and there's no way out. I believe the religious people would probably say, yeah, that's what we're saying.
That'd be fighting. Like there's always a way out of Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus
is the way in truth,
which is creating its own hell. It's really a hell. I don't see any other word to describe it.
But I want to ask you something very important. Like, I don't know if I should be asking this in the end or now, but I'm just going to ask.
I think we're already at the end. We have like maybe a few more minutes, 10, 15.
The most beautiful thing I want to take with me, right, from this is the first thing you asked me when you started talking was, who am I? Who's Tutu? And I went, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm a soul. Things I heard and knew nothing about.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just life. That very first important thing before understanding all of this and trying to interpret or look outside the world or outside yourself rather, is when you understand who or what you are, it's easy for everything else to take place. It's easy for everything to blend. You understand? Yes, I get that I'm a human, I'm a mother, I'm that, but if I still don't know, aside all the physical things or all these labels, what truly makes Tutu a complete being, then life becomes meaningless.
Yeah, it's
useless.
Too future, too small, too superficial.
Yeah. So I think also another important thing that you said, that is definitely what I'm taking with me, is that we're small. We're smaller than we think. At the same time, we act so superior. And the more we act superior, it's the more we just don't get any answers. So like understanding that I am small, that comes in many forms. It's just not just a sentence or something that you can just use whenever you feel you want to get away with something. But me walking outside the door knowing that I'm small, it opens a lot of beautiful opportunities for me. A whole different understanding. Because now understanding that I'm small, it's actually like the beginning of everything, because now I'm going to be much more humble.
Yeah.
As much as I think I know everything, I still don't know anything. Because there's going to come a person with better understanding, better sense, and then I'll be confused. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I got it all wrong. At the same time, if I'm humble, no one, not even myself, can see that I'm wrong, because when you remain humble, even if you're telling me the truth, but when you tell me at my most humble stage, your truth is now a lie. You see what I'm trying to say?
I see what you're trying to get.
Yeah, so understanding that as humans, I don't want to speak of any other creature, but understanding that as humans, we are very small. I feel like that line you made just made a lot of sense into understanding that could actually be the beginning of everything. Because we think we are going somewhere, we think we've started, and we've not.
Yeah.
Like, just a typical example, like civilization, all these ring lights, there's furniture and everything, all of these things, who would have thought this or any of this would have been possible? You see, for me to know that I know nothing and I'm not even close to knowing what I think I know. It's also going back to the language. Who would have thought there was going to be a language where we all speak? Somebody from Congo, South Africa, America, we all joined by one language. Who would have thought we'd be able to wear clothes? I'm not saying we're naked, but then everything, everything took time. So if so much has changed, I can see myself on TV, something that we thought was highly impossible, because even if you hear the radio back then, you're like, I want to get inside, I want to see the person that's inside.
Yeah.
But now, if you look at everything and how everything is forever changing, that somehow also goes back to your point that we are small. Nothing has started. Nothing.
No, there's great. This life is really immense. To be honest, it's even amazed by itself. I don't know how best to put it.
That is the best way to put it.
Because, you see, when you discover what death is, since we've been talking about death, clearly it's only when something ends that there's a beginning of some. When you die, right, that there's nothing. It's a completely new state. All we know is this state, this movement here. But when death actually happens, it's something completely unknowable, which is new, right? That thing really is immense. And it is at the source of everything, because that's where newness, I don't know how to use the word, I don't know the word in English, but that's where it comes from.
The beginning.
Yeah, new, and that is it's the source of people thinking they're clever, and therefore, because they're creating tables, therefore think, oh yeah, we're clever, we're somewhat special, and so on. But it has to start there, something that allows that to happen. But we've marched so far away from that because we're caught in this whole circle here, never-ending, repeating circle, that there's really no way out of this.
There's no way.
Yeah, for someone who, most of the time people don't want to hear these things. It's like, oh, that sounds too abstract.
I love what my dad said. My dad said, when I was telling him about our conversations, he was like, no, don't worry. I'm far from judging you now. You've made it clear what you don't want, and nobody should force you. And you are 10 times a better person than the time you used to go to church and then you come back and do shit and then pray and we forgive you. Because now you've asked God in front of us.
As a child, I used to do that.
Right.
So what would happen is, do something horrible, but you do it because you have the capacity of praying, and everything is going to be erased. So I will go do it and say, oh my God, please, this time I will never do it again, And that's because that's what they teach you in churches and what's not. And they specifically tell you, don't ask certain questions, which is, of course, that was the first question I asked when I got into a church. I was like, because I heard them playing the piano, very lovely piano, the whole ambiance. I felt something. Probably I was really just being attentive as a child. You feel the moment, the immensity of life itself, right? And then I heard the pastor saying, God has come to us.
You want to see God.
So, because, when you're praying, you close your eyes. So I quickly opened one of my eyelids to see who is that God.
Where is he?
And the piano playing, I was expecting some crazy guy falling. And then I never saw him. I was very disappointed.
Right.
I was like, also, they can lie to me like that. Let me just ask, actually, where he is and where does he come from. Maybe I don't understand. So I asked the pastor, where does God come from?
Don't ask questions.
He screams, like, never ask that question. It's a sacrilege.
Because he doesn't know.
Yeah. It's a sacrilege, you're going to go crazy. And that's the thing people say.
The frustration of not knowing. Through himself, he knows that you are seeing that he's lying, but now you have facts and he doesn't. You understand?
Yeah. And they tell you, go to hell if you ask that question. So it took me a while. Life pushes you around and so on. At some point you get tired and then you're like, okay, where does God come from? That question, which is still what I was saying earlier on, it's the same question that is the solution of it. I don't know. The question allows everything else to be.
But before we run out of time, now that you've touched that, like, we all know that something has to give. And
but what do you mean something has to give exactly?
like, where did we come from?
That's a trick. That's the trap we caught, in the sense that we feel there must be a beginning and therefore an end. There can't be something out of nowhere. Because because we've established something and nothing. The division still. You don't realize that this is nothing. You see? There's nothing to give something. Everything is already given. Why should there be something to give something? As if that's something that's going to give something is not given.
So, like, that is one thing I battle with. Like, if my parents ask me, so now you don't believe in Jesus, so where do you think you come from? Who do you think is taking care of you? You know, those questions. And like now, I feel like after this conversation, I can confidently say, I do not know. But what I know is that we hear.
Yeah.
We hear. That is the most important thing. And obviously with this life thing, the whole trap of saying, if you do this, you're going to go to heaven. If you don't do that, you're going to go to hell. I think it was just fear that was instilled in us so that we can have some sort of discipline.
Yeah, behave.
You know?
You see, that's the most interesting thing. And I think it worked for some time, right? This whole religion. And then they tell you don't do this. Although you might do some fucked up things, but you pray, you keep yourself in check. Which means it's forced. It's always been forced. But now what we're talking about is something completely different. Is you realizing that you're not a separate thing, right? First of all, you don't even exist, and which means it's everything. You don't hurt someone because you're afraid of being punished. You don't hurt someone. In this case now, you will not hurt someone because you know you're that person. Not as an idea, because actually you are that person. I don't know how to explain it. You have to do it to see what I mean by that. So why am I going to hurt myself?
Why am I going to hurt myself?
You can't hurt yourself. So I think it's very primitive, this way of keeping people in check. That's why at some point it explodes. That's why you find that now there's a group of people that say, okay, we're going to do what we want. All your stories that we're going to have parties. We're going to kill everything.
I think that point you just made is so valid. Everyone is trying to feel. In this whole world, like even the people that are listening, they're also trying to feel. And as they're trying to feel, then I'm like, these ones are crazy. I'm not feeling it. Simply because it's not going to what they're longing for or the desire they're searching for. But somebody like who's like, I'm tired of everything that's happening around me. I want to explore. I want to think of the unthinkable. I want to listen to something that does not make sense
those
until it makes sense.
Then we are talking to them.
And I always feel like, at first when we started talking, I was like, oh man, this one is crazy. Sometimes I'd even tell you like, now I'm not going to sleep the whole night. I'm going to be thinking about this thing. And it was like me wanting you to tell me the way it is.
You want assurance.
Exactly.
Someone to guide you.
When you don't even have that assurance yourself, And then like it becomes so crazy. Like, how do I come to earth and trust a person that has only been here yesterday? 57 years was nothing. 100 years is nothing. There's billions of years. There's
even
history.
Even 50,000 years.
Right. And then I trust you. You're telling me that, no, there's Jesus. You'll never see him now until whatever happens. This is what you have to believe in. And I take that and I say, I'm taking Jesus. I'm choosing Jesus for the rest of my life. And then without a doubt, like, what if there's something greater than that? You understand? What if there's no need to believe in anything? You just live. Because I've seen at times, whenever I'm like, I need money, and there's no plan to make that money, I will pray. I'll pray. I used to do it.
And you believe it's going to happen.
And I'll believe. And when it doesn't happen, I get so frustrated.
And then you say it's God's plan.
Exactly. But when I'm not looking, honestly, I don't know how I can make everyone just believe that when you're not looking, that's when things start happening.
Why do you have to believe, first of all? Like, isn't it that we believe because we are not sure?
Yeah.
If you were sure, you don't have believe in the sense that I believe there's a God, for example. you say I believe, even in the word English, I believe. For example, I believe there's a lion out of the door there. It's just a supposition. But if you knew there's a lion there, there's a lion. You don't have to believe it.
You don't have to
You
go,
don't even
otherwise
walk out.
you will see it when you walk out,
You don't even
assurance.
walk out. You know for sure. There's not a question there. It's there.
So with me, like this whole thing, everybody wants to say, oh, we come from a creator, oh, there's our God. Yes, I believe people should believe in whatever they believe in. But what always makes me sad is when people believe in everything and anything they see or hear, but fail to accept what's really going on. I think that's what the world is suffering from. People are out here like being slaves for money, the politicians and everything, church, all this division that's unnecessary. Why would we be in the same place, the same space, earth, like everybody has a right? If we're in the same space, I believe we're all equal. Why must there be something superior? Like, why must anyone be above anybody,
The question should be, why must there be a creator?
Because we are part of the creation.
See, if you introduce a creator, you've introduced an impossible question in the sense that means the creator also has to be created.
Exactly.
And the creator of the creator has to be created. It goes back in time.
You never find an answer.
Which is time. That's how time is, psychological time. But once you've actually stopped time, as in you see it for what it is, physically, as it's happening in you, then creation is there. You can see it. Not when I say you, of course.
I know what you mean. Yeah. But the only thing that still makes me unhappy, I hope on your next podcast, we would have probably gone through it, maybe,
No, right now, unfortunately, we've got limited time. After here, we can.
Do you know what makes me really sad is what you said. Like, I feel like I'm also one of those people that are just existing, but I'm not living. I've limited myself to so many things. Imagine how I've always, the dream that I'm starting now is something I had in my mind 2020. And I'm only doing it now. And now it's working out. Look at the time I delayed myself and I said, man, nobody will ever buy into this dream. Nobody will ever invest into this. And I needed help. I wanted handouts. And now that I see those handouts, the handouts are not coming out, nobody's out there to hand out me money. Nobody's out there to loan me money. So if I don't start with what I have, that means it's never going to happen. So just the same thing as with life. I just feel like I wish there could be at least out of a billion people, just 10.
10, I think, is even asking too much.
It's too much.
You see, if first of all, what we're talking about is very limited to a certain number of people, in the sense that if we have 10 is too small. If we have 10 billion people, world population, for instance, then probably 100 are serious when they're listening to this. We have probably 10 billion that are gonna beg for something, most of them. And we've got 90 billion that want a guide, someone who's gonna tell them where to go. And then you've got maybe 1,000 people that really are serious. They feel there's something. There has to be something. They're not begging. I mean, they could be begging. They belong to these groups of religion. They still belong to nations, tribes, and what's not.
Which is actually crazy, because the fact that you are here on earth satisfies everything that you are here. You belong.
Yeah. So they want to still. It's that in that quest of trying to belong to something bigger, because they're too small. If they can make a tribe, it's bigger, right? A country, it's bigger. They don't see that they can extend it to the whole life itself. So they stop to that small little thing.
Imagine.
Yeah. So the 1,000 really, they feel like there's something, yeah? They belong to something, but they don't really believe in it anymore. I mean, like, they know they don't have a choice. They have to belong to something. Otherwise, survival is at risk.
It's just like what I said, like, I've always yearned for acceptance.
Yeah.
Like, living here, I don't even feel that anymore. You understand? Because as we're talking, I'm realizing that, what the hell do you even mean? Like, you still want your mom to give you that acceptance. She accepted you. She brought you to earth. It's done. Now, this is the jungle. Face it.
And what if she doesn't accept you? So what?
So what? Am I going to like go around destroying people's lives or making people feel less of themselves just for me to feel accepted?
So you see, if you're not accepted, you see, you can't stand being alone.
You can't.
But what we're talking about here can only be discovered by being alone.
Exactly.
Finding out.
I think you just made a point. Like, a lot of people are scared of being alone. They want to go to the club. They want to go out and eat dinner, even if it's just a solo date. But let me be out. Let me be with people, because they're scared of facing, I don't like using the word demons, but those inner demons that you're running away from. Like, why should I be accepted? I'm accepted. The fact that I'm here. I think that's one thing we also have to look at, that the fact that I'm here. The fact that you can't do anything about it, that I'm here on earth with you. The fact that there's things you can't change and it's really happening.
You can push it even further. Sorry to interrupt you. Right now I'm talking, right? You have no other choice but to listen to me. You can decide to cover your ears. That's another thing. But listening is completely free. There's nothing that you have to do. No, it's not a choice. You don't choose to listen. So long as your ears are working, listening is happening. You don't think, okay, now I can listen.
I'm weird. Sometimes a person can talk, and if I choose that, what this person is saying is not for me.
No, you might not pay attention to it, right? Because you're thinking about your own things. But recording, your brain is recording.
It's going to come back, that's true.
Yeah, it's there, it's happening. I mean, look, maybe listening, you can have a choice, but looking. So long as your eyes are open, there's looking.
And you don't have a choice. You keep seeing things.
Yeah, light is
oh my gosh,
through.
This is beautiful. That's like, there's no way you can control.
Yeah.
I think also, like, it is a blessing and also somehow not a blessing to be able to see.
To see what? Physically see?
Physically.
Why?
Because a lot of us are blessed to see everything that's going on. We just see, but we never like really, analyze that whole scene, It's like, if I look at your shirt, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a nice shirt. I want it. I'll go get it, right? But if I didn't see it, it's not something that I would have wanted. Like, sometimes you see people, blind people, I feel like they are the most precious ones because they sense. It's not like us. They sense, okay, I think.
Well, some of the senses are more acute than ours because, they're using it more.
You see?
Yeah.
So now imagine somebody who has never seen this glory but can be able to feel it without even seeing it. Can you imagine how incredible that is?
That must be something else. Also, look, I don't know if one is better than the other, but still, there's another type of seeing, which is, see, when you're looking at your thoughts moving, that whole conflict, you're seeing it, right? Which means also you're listening to yourself. So seeing is listening, psychologically seeing.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. Seeing is listening.
Listening.
So a blind person can very much see, although he's seeing himself. Now that's what happens, for example, when you go to sleep. Your eyes are closed, right? All you're seeing is your thoughts. That's all you're seeing. But somehow, it's very much alive. It's like you're seeing.
Oh, man, this topic, like just talking about blind people, like imagine living life freely with something most of them even get married to people they've never seen. Do you know what's even much more special? We don't even know what's going on in their head, what their thinking is like, And then you out here thinking you know everything, like you still can't get access to that.
Yeah, that's why I don't like to rely on experiences.
Yeah.
Because experiences are very limited. Every time, you have to add more. You can always add more and more. For example, you've had all these experiences.
You go crazy.
Yeah. You can imagine adding the experience of a blind person. You can still add, and so on and so on. So it's always limited. That's why I always push experiences aside.
Yeah.
All these things of, I've experienced so many beautiful things, I've dreamed of this, it was like this and that. All that I feel like it's too small.
It's too small.
Yeah, leave it aside.
But what do you think is that big thing that we're not seeing before we close up? Just that one thing that you wish, even if you cannot like really elaborate, but what is that one thing that you wish for everyone, just not for yourself, like the bigger picture? Because all of us, as much as we think we've seen it, there's people that can come and then you just realize that, wow, I know nothing. at all? Like, what is that one thing that if I live here, you'd actually want me to know? It's my choice at the end of the day, but what is that one thing that you think can just change the world and actually make people to be able to listen to the podcast, with a clear understanding of what's really going on?
Yeah. All right. That one thing, I don't know how to put it, but it's gonna always come back to the self anyway. You know, if you can find a way, it's the wrong way of putting it, but if you can be humble to discover, right? If you can say, look, I don't know anything. All I know is what I've been told, what I've experienced. But really, that just seems to be too little. You know, can I find out for myself for now? Even though I seem to know all these things, can I rediscover it, right? And start very close. Don't go very far, you know. Start very close, which is you, which is what's happening in you. Very close. That's much more important, because if you don't get it properly here, everything that you'll go to discover there will be biased, will be illusory, because your mind is a bit twisted. But if here it's clear, then you can go very, very far. You actually discover that here, what you're calling there, has always been
here. That's a good one.
So talking about the people listening to us, like I was saying, 1,000 maybe are serious. They don't really believe. They don't believe in propaganda and so on. 10 are the ones that really are starving. They have that sense of urgency. They really can feel like, no, there's a wall and I can't climb out of this wall. And perhaps 3, as they listen to this and they find out about all these things in themselves, they will give up. Give up in the sense that they don't even trying to climb the wall anyway. Those ones are the ones that are important. I don't really care about any other person, but those 3 that can say, okay, I've discovered I'm in some sort of trap.
The trap.
Every move that I make is a trap. They will sit down. They will stop moving. And perhaps those ones can finally get out. You know? And I think that's good enough. I don't think we need many people really.
Yeah.
To be able to change the world.
To be the light of the world.
Yeah, if you really can have one person, I think you can, over time, you know, in a lifetime, you can impact the world so much that whatever that is going to leave behind inevitably has to do something. You know, and I believe sometimes, I think sometimes these guys, these big names we have, you know, maybe the Christ, I don't know the story of Christ, whether it's real or not, you know, the Buddhas, even just these influential people that have brought in something. I believe initially they were talking about the same thing, but unfortunately it had to be shared by other people, and probably those people had no idea what
they were even saying.
So they started worshiping the people, you know, and it became Buddhist and Christianity and whatever. But I feel like from time to time there's definitely a mind, because this mind doesn't go anywhere, right? If I'm dying already now, when I die physically, to me, death has no meaning at all, in the sense that there's no such thing as death to me now, as in physical death, and then, you know, like reincarnation doesn't make sense. Incarnation does make sense, though, as in incarnate into something right now. So this mind is not going anywhere. It's not my mind, it's not boss's mind. It's the mind, it's there. So it has to affect people from different time period. And those people are kind of like shaping the world, kind of like in the shadow. I don't know how to put it.
So are you also one of those people that believe no matter what we do, we are all just connected to one mind?
The mind is one. We divide the mind. The moment we say we've divided the mind, but the mind is one. As in, it's not also something, you know, abstract. To me, this is the mind. This wood here. The atoms in this is the mind. And it's not my mind or your mind, it's the mind. So once you die to yourself, at least in that way, you get to see the full picture of things. And maybe those 3 people Yeah, and hopefully you're one of the 3 people. Then you get to touch something that can't be touched, and inevitably you will do something.
That is the most important thing, to touch something that can't be touched.
Yeah, so I think we discovered what death is, at least, on the deeper level, not just superficially.
Yeah.
If as we're talking, even the people listening to us, if they could watch this as it was happening,
with pure
they
understanding.
were with death, yeah. So it's not something to be scared of.
It's not
Don't
there.
go kill people so you don't die,
Death is not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. This has been so amazing.
Thank you so much, Tutu.
Thank you.
Hopefully I'll have you. I had other guests last time. You saw it in the second. Yeah. So with you, I just wanted to have this one-on-one because we've kind of had the discussion together.
Yeah.
More or less. So I felt like, involving people that maybe don't really
understand
understand that we have not discussed. Maybe it was going to be a little bit more complex, but I'm really hoping maybe we can get together.
I'd love that.
Yeah, with them I had plans to really go all the way. It's unfortunate I'm doing this before them, but I wanted to step by step we go all the way to death. Because
that would be beautiful though. Yeah. I'd love that.
So I'm gonna do that with them, and hopefully you'll be part of it.
I hope so.
You don't have to be in all the episodes, but we'll see how it goes.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I also cannot wait, just to hear how other people think. You know, there's a different way. Like, if we're outside in a restaurant, trust me, it was not going to be as meaningful as this because there was going to be so many distractions.
Yeah.
But having to have those people as a distraction, I can't wait for that experience.
I actually love that. I love, and I hope if there's one thing, I think it's even more important than what I said. People should keep is, do not believe anything that I said.
Yes. Oh, you used to tell me that all the time.
Yeah, you don't believe it. Discover. Yeah, see, maybe, who knows? You don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Then that person, if they discover, they could be right.
You don't know.
So you just don't believe anything.
Maybe I planned to just come and waste your time here. You've got no idea.
Yeah,
maybe I was bored at home.
That could never happen.
No, but that's my point, you see.
Yeah.
So find out, really.
For yourself.
Yeah, if you can find out for yourself, it will be real.
Yeah.
It will be authentic.
Yeah.
It's not given to you.
I think that's your answer to it. Like, if you're looking for something authentic, look for it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'll take that with